Chapter 1365. At other times, these bailiffs might turn a blind eye to it. At that time, they might even be able to get some benefits. After all, they had to see each other frequently. But at this time no one dared to do that. Where was this place? This was Zhang Feng's territory. Moreover, they got a lot of benefits in daily life. Especially after the county magistrate Niu Weili cooperated with Zhang Feng in the basketball business, all the people in the county government made a fortune. They dared not mess around in this place. Otherwise, they might lose their jobs. In addition, these bastards dared to play big and even killed people. They even injured the group of soldiers. What was this? This was clearly something that only bandits and bandits could do. How could they be biased? Even if they were given 100 heads, they would not dare to do that. This bastard is Yi Dianxuan, who lives near the Xuanyi sect. Last year, he stole from a brothel and was beaten half to death. In the end, he mortgaged his thatched shed and was locked in the government for half a year. This one is Zuoji, this one is... Under the identification of the runners one by one, Jia Eru also got a hemp rope for each of them. He tied the rope with the Horse King's thorn on it. If they did not struggle, it would be better. Once they struggled, the thorns, which were half a finger long and had barbs, would pierce into their flesh and make them beg for death. However, even with that being the case, they were still busy for over 2 hours. Almost all the students had woken up. But at this moment, along with the sound of quarreling, a large number of people came to the entrance of the market on Xiao Mountain. The leaders were the Tang family, the Mi family, and the others. What are you doing? Are you rebelling? As soon as the leaders of these families arrived, they immediately put their hands on their hips and pointed at the noses of Jia Eru and the others and scolded them. Son of a bitch, who gave you the right? This is the market. Do you think you are qualified to make trouble here? F*CKU, you army ruffians. Let's see if old man doesn't go to the Supreme Court tomorrow to sue you for murdering students on the street and robbing goods. Do you still have the law in your eyes? Come on, untie these people quickly. Yes, master, we are innocent. We are innocent. These damned bastards suddenly rushed out of the barracks. We were just buying and selling things when these damned bastards helped us without any explanation. Furthermore, look at that. That student was beaten to death just to speak up for us. Master, you have to uphold justice for us. At this moment, the woman and the others seemed to have found their backbone and started shouting. As for the Tang family, the Mi family, and the others, they brought their hired thugs to confront Jia Eru and the others. Jia Eru was in a difficult position. However, he still blocked the front. He waved his mo sword and shouted, "Whoever dares to take another step forward dies." At this moment, the young master of the Tang family waved his fan, slowly walked forward and said indifferently, "Brat, who do you think you are? Do you think you're worthy of blocking our way? Who do you think you are? How dare you cause trouble in the academy?" At this moment, Old Ma took the mo saber from Jia Eru's hand and slowly looked straight into the eyes of the Tang clan's young master. "Who do you think you are? Why are you interfering in the affairs of the academy?" Haha. The Tang clan's young master sneered. "Who do I think I am? Haha. How dare you? Young Master Tang is the son-in-law of the current Chamberlain of Dependencies, Lord Zhou. He is also a supervisor of the Chamberlain of Dependencies, a 5th rank official. Who do you think you are? How dare you speak to Lord Tang like this?" Kneel. The group of ruffians around the Tang clan's young master looked as if they had seen their saviors. They surrounded him and berated Jia Eru and Old Ma, completely ignoring the disdain on the Tang clan's young master's face. At this moment, the Mi family, Gao family, and Bai family also stepped forward to berate them. "Look at what you've done. Is there any law here? Although this place is indeed White Deer College's territory, this is still the territory of the Tang dynasty. Furthermore, this is right under the emperor's feet. Look at what you've done. This is knowingly breaking the law." That's right. Old Man and the others' families are all officials in the imperial court. When they see this, they can't just ignore it. Furthermore, there are rumors that some people on this mountain have come up with something that offends the heavens and reason. How can we just sit by and watch? Each of these people was more eloquent than the other. Even Old Ma, who had been on the battlefield for a long time, wanted to chop them up with a knife. At this moment, it had already become a three-sided battle. On one hand, the members of these aristocratic clans were criticizing Jia Eru and the others, accusing them of being rude and uncouth, and that they shouldn't treat the commoners in such a manner. On the other hand, the group of people that the aristocratic clans had found were even more arrogant at this moment, loudly berating Zhang Feng and the White Deer Institute. It was as if in their eyes, this mountain was as terrifying as Avicii. There was also another side that stood on the college's side. As soon as these people spoke, the people from the aristocratic families would step forward and ask about the phosphate fertilizer and the poison that could harm people's lives. They would also ask why they didn't hand it over. It was obvious that they wanted to force the people on the mountain to hand over the phosphate fertilizer to them. How could they not be able to see these things? Yu Qigong, who was standing on the second floor of the restaurant, wanted to rush down and kill them several times. This was 2F** King infuriating. Anyone who wasn't a fool could tell that someone was targeting Zhang Feng. The Tang family, the Mi family, the Bai family, and the Gao family were doing very well. Lao Tzu wanted to see how hard their heads were. Yu Qigong clenched his fists tightly. He tilted his head and said to the general behind him, "Hurry up and send a letter to the emperor. Tell him exactly what happened here. Also, Lao Tzu wants to kill someone." Chapter 1366. On the mountain. Zhang Feng was very anxious and depressed at this time. He had already heard the horn at the foot of the mountain just now. However, this damn old Nyo had been following him since he came. He even followed him to the toilet. This made Zhang Feng very depressed. Originally, he wanted to go down the mountain to have a look. It was reasonable to say that if there was no urgent matter, this horn would not be blown, although he did not know the meaning of this horn. However, the moment the horn sounded, all the security guards on the mountain, as well as the guards on the mountain, gathered nervously in an instant, and then ran to the mountain gate. Zhang Feng knew that something big must have happened at the foot of the mountain. He had been uneasy today, but he could not explain it. At this time, old Nyo was following behind him. How could this not make him more upset? At this time, Zhang Feng was ready to go to Yu Shinan and the others to see what was going on. Since the horn sounded, these people had disappeared. Li Chengqian and the others hid in the mountain. After Sun Simiao saw Zhang Feng, he sighed and also went up the mountain. Nominally, he was taking them to familiarize with the characteristics of some medicinal materials, but who knew what they were doing? At this time, Zhang Feng wanted to go out, but when he saw Niu Jindao squatting at the door, he simply went back to the bedroom angrily. Jingshu also saw Zhang Feng's worry, and she also heard the horn at the foot of the mountain. She seemed to understand something, but Niu Jindao was there, so she could not say anything. At this time, seeing Zhang Feng so anxious, Jingshu whispered in Zhang Yuyao's ear. Zhang Yuyao opened her eyes wide and said, "Will this work?" "Sister Yuyao, trust me this time." Zhang Yuyao heard, looked at Zhang Feng, then bit her lips and went out. As soon as she went out, Zhang Yuyao looked at Niu Jindao and said, "Brother Niu." Alas! Niu Jindao was an uncouth man. He had always been fearful of women, especially the women of his brothers. When he saw that Zhang Yuyao was about to leave, he hurriedly opened the door and asked, "Younger sister Yuyao, where are you going?" Zhang Yuyao pursed her lips and said, "Young master originally wanted to go to the mountain to pick some herbs for young master Xiaoniu, but I don't know what's wrong with him today, so he simply gave me the prescription and asked me to find Dr. Sun and ask him to help pick some herbs. However, I don't know much about the situation in the mountain. Can I trouble Big Brother Neo to take me there?" This. If it was any other day, he could have just waved his hand and called a guard over. However, he couldn't do that now as all the guards had left. At this time he definitely couldn't go. Seeing Niu Jinda hesitate, Zhang Yuyao whispered, "Prince Zhang is asleep. If you don't believe me, why don't you go and take a look?" "No, no, no." Niu Jindao waved his hands repeatedly. It was a good thing that Zhang Feng could fall asleep. He also wished that Zhang Feng could sleep until night time. Moreover, Niu Jinda didn't doubt Zhang Yuyao's words. After all, Zhang Feng must be asleep at this time every day. No matter what day it was, it would be unshakable. However, Out of caution, although Niu Jinda said that he wouldn't look, he still went to take a look at Zhang Feng. Seeing that he was really sleeping soundly, he was relieved. Fine. Then I'll go with you. However, I'm only going with you. I'll come back when I deliver it. Niu Jinda had long wanted to go down the mountain to see how things were going. Unfortunately, he had a mission to complete. He couldn't go. However, at this time, Zhang Feng was asleep. If he went down the mountain to take a look, it should be fine, right? Moreover, if he didn't send Zhang Yuyao over now, it would inevitably arouse their suspicions. Moreover, Zhang Feng had never used any kind of medicine on Niu Jinhu's leg. This sudden use of medicine also made Niu Jinda unusually hesitant. He wanted to see what kind of medicine Zhang Feng was going to use. Thus, he simply found a mule and personally pulled it. He hurried in the direction Sun Simiao and the others went. After the two of them left for a cup of tea's time, Zhang Feng, who was sleeping soundly, suddenly opened his eyes. He looked at Jingshu and asked, "Gone? Gone? You're really my good wife." Zhang Feng excitedly spat on Jingshu's face. He hurriedly put on his boots and clothes and hurried out of the door. As soon as he went out, Zhang Feng searched for a while before he found Shiwa and Gaoqin in Sun Simiao's villa. He was surprised to see the two of them squatting in front of a medicine furnace. However, the furnace wasn't lit. This made Zhang Feng ask in surprise, "What are you doing?" One of the two was Zhang Feng. He hurriedly said, "Dr. Sun asked us to watch the medicine furnace. He said that we have to wait for him to soak it for 2 hours. Moreover, we can't let the things inside escape." Zhang Feng was confused. What was this? What medicine? Out of curiosity, Zhang Feng opened the medicine pot. However, he found that there were actually a few loaches jumping around in the medicine pot. At this moment, Zhang Feng suddenly thought of many things. He couldn't help but think of the abnormal state of these people at the foot of the mountain. He shouted, "Not good. Quickly come down the mountain with me." Something happened at the foot of the mountain. Chapter 1367. Zhang Feng wasn't a fool. Now that he saw such a situation, he would be a fool if he didn't know that something had happened at the foot of the mountain. Moreover, these people were all hiding it from him. Gao Kan and Shiva were also shocked when they saw the situation. At first, they also felt that there was a problem. Those guards and security guards, after hearing the strange sound of the horn, disappeared almost instantly. At this time, Sun Simiao actually asked them to come here to simmer the medicine. This was simply unreasonable. Dr. Sun had a medicine boy, and such an important thing could wait until he finished his business at the top of the mountain to simmer the medicine. Why didn't he let others come, but only the two of them? They were personally appointed by Zhang Feng as his followers. At this time they were sent away. Something big must have happened. At this time, Gaoqin didn't say anything. He picked up Zhang Feng, carried him on his back, and flew towards the direction of the mountain gate. The group of students were all stunned by this scene. They didn't know what happened today, but when the horn sounded at the foot of the mountain, all the teachers ran away. They only left some homework for them to review. At this time, when they saw the dean acting like this, the students realized that the security guards on the mountain, as well as the guards who usually didn't say a word, suddenly disappeared. Zhang Feng didn't care about these people. At this time he couldn't care less. Gaoqin was tall and strong. Coupled with his physical fitness, even if he was carrying Zhang Feng, he still ran very fast. Shiva, on the other hand, was in a miserable state. He could only follow behind and run madly. The three of them, one in front and one behind, ran down the mountain like the wind. As soon as they reached the mountain gate, Zhang Feng was shocked by the faint noise coming from the foot of the mountain. Looking at the mountain, it was already filled with the group of guards that used to be on the mountain. On the road up the mountain, there were even groups of guards and veterans stationed there. It seemed like they were guarding against something coming up the mountain. Zhang Feng was a little puzzled. But when those people saw that Zhang Feng wanted to go down the mountain, they hurriedly tried to stop him. But at this time, Gaoqin only listened to Zhang Feng's orders. Anyone who dared to block him was basically pushed aside by him. And when the crowd saw Zhang Feng's actions, they had no choice but to make way for the three people to go down the mountain. The closer they got to the foot of the mountain, the louder the noise became. Faintly, Zhang Feng could also hear the sounds of quarreling. Zhang Feng's appearance instantly attracted the attention of the people at the foot of the mountain. However, when Zhang Feng arrived at the mountain gate, the group of security guards refused to let him pass. They guarded the gate tightly. Zhang Feng was so angry that he grabbed the collar of a security guard who was taller than him and said, "Are you going to move or not?" As he spoke, the man said bitterly, "Director, there was a murder case at the foot of the mountain just now. A group of troublemakers came for you. Now the people from the county government and the military camp are here. Please don't go down the mountain. If something happens..." "What did you say? There was a murder case? What's going on?" Zhang Feng felt uneasy. At this time, when he heard this, he instantly understood everything. Without waiting for the man to answer, he asked anxiously, "Who died? Tell me." The guard was even more bitter at this time. But at this time, the people at the foot of the mountain seemed to have seen Zhang Feng, and instantly burst into a burst of screams. "Look! That bastard Zhang Feng has come out! Get out! Mother ***, come out! ***ck your mother! You have the ability to do things, but you don't have the ability to admit it, right? If you don't tell me the bad things you have done today I'll set fire." Bang! That voice, with a muffled sound, came to an abrupt end. But it aroused more angry curses. At this time, even Jia Eru, Old Ma, and the others could no longer control it. In addition, with these families fanning the flames and adding fuel to the fire, they couldn't do anything even if they wanted to. Zhang Feng also saw the old village chief and Old He in the crowd. Old He and the old village chief were more miserable. At this time, Old He's face was disheveled, and there were even dried scabs all over his face. The old village chief's beard was mostly gone, as if it had been torn off by someone. Zhang Feng was so angry that his whole body was trembling. He took out the three-pronged bayonet from his arms and pointed it at the security guard's neck. He coldly shouted, "Get out of the way!" The security guard saw that things were already out of control. At this time, Zhang Feng was in a rage. While he was puzzled, Gao Qian unexpectedly punched him in the neck. In an instant, his vision turned black and he fainted. Taking advantage of this gap, Gao Qian carried Zhang Feng and jumped over the fence of the mountain gate. Old He and Old He also noticed Zhang Feng. When they saw the situation at the gate, they hurried to the mountain gate and surrounded Zhang Feng behind them, telling him not to come forward. Jia Eru and the others instantly gave up the confrontation in front of them, and hurried to Zhang Feng to form a battle formation in front of him. At this time, the bows in their hands were already on the string again. Zhang Feng didn't care about these. Looking at Old He and the old village chief, he hurriedly asked, "What's going on? Who died?" It would be better if he didn't ask. Once he asked, the old village chief sobbed and pointed to the fork in the road to the paper mill. "Fengzi, this old man has let you down. I didn't take good care of Wanli." While speaking, the old village chief was ready to kneel down. Zhang Feng's face sank and hurriedly helped the old village chief up. His eyes instantly turned red and asked, "What happened to Wanli?" "Wanli? Wanli is sad. These bastards smashed half of his head." Buzz. Chapter 1368. Zhang Feng felt like his head was about to explode. Qian Wanli is dead? How could this be? He had just seen Qian Wanli last night. How could this be? How did he die? Zhang Feng looked as if he wanted to eat someone. When the Tang family and the others saw this, they smiled and looked at Zhang Feng, wanting to see what he was going to do. If Zhang Feng killed someone in a fit of anger, that would be even better. The group of ruffians was waiting for Zhang Feng. Seeing Zhang Feng like this, they clamored even louder. The woman with the broken arm was like a pig being slaughtered. She roared crazily and screamed miserably, but she did not dare to step forward. Everyone was afraid of death. No one was not afraid. Although they had already taken enough money and food, Zhang Feng's reputation was still there. Although they did not know what the poisonous thing Zhang Feng had created was, their intuition told them that it would be something good. Otherwise, Sun Simiao would not have done that. But in the face of hunger and money, they still chose to come here and cause trouble. And the most important thing was, those big clans had all said that they would take responsibility for this matter, with Kong Yingda. Moreover, even if someone died at this time, it would be a mistake. Could it be that Zhang Feng wanted to kill someone in front of everyone? Moreover, these people from the big clans had said that even if Zhang Feng were to come up with something that could produce 1,000 caddies per mu of land, they would be the first ones to get it. This was their reward. This was something that everyone in this era knew. Every time something good came out, the big clans would be the first to use it. The common people could only look at it. Who would really be on their side? Their life and death depended on the breath of these people. At this time, seeing that the main character had come out, it was time for them to show off. How could they not shout even louder? Zhang Feng listened carefully to the two people's narration, and the Mitsubishi Army knife in his hand clenched even tighter. Let's go. Follow me to take a look at Wanli. As they spoke, Zhang Feng and Gao Ken took a step forward. What could old Ma and Jia Eru say when they saw this? He had no choice but to be on guard while clearing the way. Zhang Feng, that brat was killed by you. If you hadn't made that poison, how could he have died? Yes, that brat deserved to die. If not for Gao Ken, shut him up. Zhang Feng didn't wait for that person to finish speaking. He pointed at the fiercest person and shouted. But before Gao Ken could say anything, a cold arrow pierced towards the person who had just spoken. The arrow flashed twice on that person's forehead, and that person instantly fell straight to the ground. The clamoring crowd instantly froze. Some people were terrified. One after another, they retreated one after another. Although some people were terrified, they didn't want to retreat. They had no choice because they were involved in the beating and killing just now. If they retreated now, they wouldn't be able to escape when the time came to settle the score. At this time, looking at Zhang Feng's expression, it seemed that the dead brat was very important to Zhang Feng. The people of the Tang, Bai Mi, and Gao families were originally a little excited, but they also faintly realized that something was wrong. Originally, they were looking forward to Zhang Feng taking action. That way, they would have something to use against Zhang Feng. But now, it seemed that things were a little out of control. At this time, their faces were a little uncertain. Zhang Feng didn't pay attention to these people. Instead, he directly squeezed through the crowd and came to the straw mat. At this time, the blood was still flowing. Zhang Feng lifted the straw mat with trembling hands. The next moment, when he saw Qian Wanli's eyes that were still open and his right eye exploded, he couldn't hold back the anger in his chest. Old Ma. Here. Zhang Feng took out the blood jade hairpin that sealed Lang Ju-su, then took out a token to enter the imperial city, and handed it to Old Ma. Quickly go and find Niu Weili. Tell him to take this to the emperor, and tell him that Lao Tzu is going to start a massacre today. Old Ma was stunned. He didn't know the origin of this blood jade. But at this time when he heard Zhang Feng's words, Old Ma hurriedly said, Dean, you can't. Zhang Feng's eyes were red. Can't what? Zhang Feng grabbed Old Ma's collar and pressed him in front of Qian Wanli's body. He shouted, Don't tell me he died for nothing? These damn bastards, how can they keep insulting us? Can't Lao Tzu say a word? If the one who died was your brother, what would you do? Go. I don't want to say it a second time. At this time, the ruffians and the others were also panicking. They hurriedly looked back and saw that the people from the big families still didn't say anything. Instead, they frowned and winked at them. Although they were afraid, there was no turning back now. Another strange voice came from the crowd. Oh, you want to kill someone? You're just a small viscount. Do you think you're worthy of the emperor's attention? Whoosh! The response was still an arrow. In an instant, the whole scene was silent. Only the person who was not completely dead was still struggling on the ground. Zhang Feng didn't want to talk nonsense anymore. He carried Qian Wanli and moved Qian Wanli's body to the statue at the entrance of the academy with old he and the others. He ordered, Guards, guard that place with your lives. Kill anyone who dares to touch his body. Chapter 1369. Zhang Feng, don't go too far. That kid was just a mistake. If you continue to kill like this, aren't you afraid of death? Kid, this is all a misunderstanding. You have to make things clear first. Search. Just as someone shouted out again. The sound of an arrow hitting the ground caused everyone's expression to change. Zhang Feng sat in front of the statue, lit a cigarette, and sat in front of Qian Wanli, smoking while playing with the Mitsubishi Army knife in his hand. He did not look at the crowd, nor did he care about anyone. At this time, on the mountain, Yu Shinan and the others hurried down the mountain when they heard that Zhang Feng had gone down the mountain. After seeing Qian Wanli's body and the current situation, everyone's head buzzed in an instant. Stop. All of you stop for old man, don't kill anymore. Zhang Feng was very angry at this time. He did not like to find trouble, nor did he like to cause trouble. But these days, there were always people who wanted to find trouble for him, especially those invisible hands. He could not bear it. What's more, this group of bastards still wanted to force him. How could he not know what these people were doing? It was nothing more than wanting to get benefits from him. As for what benefits, was there a need to say? It was definitely the phosphate fertilizer that could increase production. He had not done anything yet, and this kind of thing had already happened. What would happen in the future? At this time, Yu Shinan and the others went down the mountain. In a flash, these hooligans found an outlet to vent their anger. Each and every one of them cursed Zhang Feng. Some were even about to throw stones at him, but Jia Eru personally picked up a bow in his hand and stopped them. Yu Shinan and the others also understood the cause and effect of the matter from Cripple Wang, as well as those angry people and merchants. For a moment, they were also very angry and did not know how to deal with this matter. At this time, seeing that the situation had reached a stalemate, the Tang family's people felt that the time was right. They hurried forward and said, "Mr. Bo Shi." Mr. Tang bowed elegantly and said, "Mr. Bo Shi, as you can see, we don't know the cause of the incident. No one really knows what is going on. But the incident of someone being poisoned on the mountain was seen by everyone in Chang'an city." Yu Shinan gloomily looked at the youth's surname Tang and asked, "What are you trying to say?" The young man with the surname Tang waved his folding fan and said indifferently, "We just happened to go up the mountain and ran into this general. He was arresting people and beating people up, so we couldn't stand it and wanted to argue with him. However, this general and this Prince Zhang seemed to be unreasonable. They killed people on sight. Look at the corpses on the ground. They were all alive just a moment ago. And look at that woman. She only heard that her husband was working on the mountain, but she didn't see him for a long time. She also didn't find him, so she wanted to argue with him. However, her arm was broken by the person behind you. I think this seems to be the cause of the incident, right? This woman wanted to go up the mountain to look for her husband, but she was obstructed by many people. Women are always a little talkative, but it seems a little unreasonable to break someone's arm so openly. So these people couldn't stand it, and went forward to argue. In the end, they were insulted by the dead young man. You may not know the identity of this young man. He is the only son of Hengtong Private Bank, Qian Tong. He has been pampered since he was young. What can he do? You are talking nonsense." Cripple Wang couldn't listen to it anymore. His face was red as he shouted, "Mr. Bo Shi, things are not like what he said at all. And he wasn't even there at that time. How could he know all this? Mr. Bo Shi, you can go and ask those barbarian merchants. You will know. When these people came to the city square, they spread rumors that Feng Zi was making poison and wanted to harm the world. If anyone dares to not believe these things, they will be surrounded and beaten by these people. And there are patrolmen in official uniforms in this city square, but they were kidnapped by these people. You can go and ask them. Everything will be clear. These people are Chang'an's hooligans and scoundrels. You are talking nonsense. We are all honest and dutiful people. Today, we came up the mountain to ask if we can go up the mountain to do some errands or to study. Who would have thought that we would be insulted by these people? Mr. Bo Shi, we are innocent." The scene fell into chaos again. Although Yu Shinan and the others were well educated, how could they be a match for these shrews and hooligans? In just a few words, they were speechless. They were so angry that their bodies were trembling. At this moment, Zhang Feng slowly stood up and looked indifferently at the youth surnamed Tang and the others. "You are all sensible people. Stop pretending. I know why you are here. Tell me, what do you want?" Hearing this, everyone quieted down instantly, but in the next moment, this group of hooligans and shrews demanded an exorbitant price. If you don't have 10,000 taels of gold today, I will report this to the emperor. That's right. My brother was killed by them. This matter can't be forgotten. We want Zhang Feng to get out of Shao Mountain. This Shao Mountain belongs to us. How can we allow you to act rashly here? Zhang Feng was still unmoved by this. He only looked at the youth surnamed Tang and the others. After the time it took to finish a meal, these people slowly stopped talking. Zhang Feng sneered and said, I have a lot of money. I have more than 300,000 taels of gold. I also have a lot of food. Even if you want my academy, I can. I, Zhang Feng, will give it to you. But before we talk about this, let's settle our accounts. You killed my brother first and disturbed the order of White Deer College. How do you want to settle this account? You beat people indiscriminately and wantonly framed me, Zhang Feng. How do you want to settle this? As long as you have evidence, I, Zhang Feng, will plead guilty. But Zhang Feng took a step forward and looked directly at the youth surnamed Tang and the others. What do you want? Tell me. Are you thinking about my phosphate fertilizer formula? Chapter 1370. This time, the young master of the Tang family, as well as the members of the Mi family, Bai family and Gao family, were all shocked. Those who were already arguing also stopped abruptly. Wasn't this what they all wanted? However, the young man surnamed Tang was quite capable and naturally knew a little about these things. Therefore, when he heard Zhang Feng's words, he hesitated a little. Yu Shinan and the others' expressions also changed abruptly at this moment. They didn't know why Zhang Feng would say this at this time. They were about to dissuade him when Zhang Feng waved his hand and stopped them. At this time, Zhang Feng was completely in a rage. This was also the first time he was so angry in the Tang dynasty. However, even he didn't know why he was so calm at this time. He had to calm down. Although he had only known Qian Wanli for less than 3 months, Zhang Feng had seen him with the rarest talent in the art of merchants. In time, he would definitely become the most terrifying merchant in the entire Tang dynasty. Zhang Feng also intended to cultivate him. After all, although Zhang Feng had never seen Lao Li and the others' businesses, Zhang Feng could tell from the actions of Li Gan and Chen Tiniu that their interests and hobbies didn't lie in the business at all. However, Lao Li and the others were his brothers. This made Zhang Feng think about the future. Qian Wanli was the best person to help Lao Li and help him spread his business all over the world in the future. It was no exaggeration to say that the wisdom of Lao Li and the others in the business world combined was not even 1/10 of Qian Wanli's. The reason why Zhang Feng wanted to conquer Qiuzi City was to consolidate the Tang dynasty's strategic position in the future. It was also the place that Zhang Feng wanted to build the business throat of the Tang dynasty. The best and most qualified person was Qian Wanli. Moreover, after interacting with Qian Wanli, he had already regarded Qian Wanli as his own brother. How could Zhang Feng not be angry when his own brother was killed for no reason? If this spread, how could Zhang Feng continue to live in the world? Where would Zhang Feng put his face? How would the world view him? Today's incident also sounded an alarm for Zhang Feng. The people he wanted to protect were only these people. If the one who died today was his brother, what would he do? If the one who died today was Li Qian, how could he face Lao Li? Today's events gave Zhang Feng an impulse to intimidate his brother. For the sake of his brother, for the sake of the responsibility in his heart, for the sake of calling him master, for the sake of being the dean, and for the sake of being a man. Therefore, Zhang Feng was extremely reluctant to use a method that he did not want to use. That was the token that Lao Li gave him previously. It was a pass to enter and exit the palace. Although he knew that Lao Li must have given it to him because the emperor wanted to see him, Zhang Feng was not prepared. Although he wanted to see the emperor, he was still very afraid. Moreover, this was not the best time to see the emperor, so Zhang Feng chose not to see him. However, it was different now. This involved several aristocratic families. In addition, he wanted to kill people today. It was impossible for this matter not to alarm the emperor. If he took the initiative, it would be fine. However, since these people dared to cause trouble today, they must have been prepared. At this moment, these people were probably kneeling in front of the emperor to impeach him, right? If that was the case, then why did Lao Tzu wait for your people to come? Lao Tzu personally sent you on your way. Therefore, Zhang Feng used the blood jade that old man Li gave him. In history, there were very few records of this blood jade. Moreover, the information was very incomplete. If Zhang Feng did not see the words wolf seal, Zhang Feng would not dare to believe that this Rui hairpin and long blood jade that was like a sharp sword was the Darkhan dynasty's commander's seal. This was also what old man Li said when he gave it to him. As long as he held this item, no one in the world could touch him. This was also the reason why Zhang Feng had no choice but to use this today. After all, today, he wanted to kill all these troublemakers to avenge his brothers. Zhang Feng was not a reckless man. However, in terms of emotions, Zhang Feng was very impulsive. After all, he was a transmigrator. The feeling of being a stranger in a foreign land made him feel very lonely. If he could not even protect his brothers and friends at this time, how could he talk about what to do in the future? It was better to disperse earlier. Far away in the distance, Li Chengqian, Niu Jinda, and the rest stood at the mountain gate. They looked straight at Zhang Feng. They seemed to be anticipating and worried. After all, none of them knew what Zhang Feng was doing. They did not know if Zhang Feng was really angry or if he really wanted to stop and keep the peace. However, at this moment, someone could not wait any longer. Li Chengqian suddenly said, "Niu Jijia, I order you to immediately give the order to capture these people. You must not let them make any demands." Chapter 1371. Cheng Chimo and the others, who had the most explosive tempers, couldn't wait any longer. At this moment, they were eager to try. If Niu Jinda nodded, they would instantly rush out. But Niu Jinda actually couldn't wait any longer. After all, Zhang Feng was his family's savior. But it was also because of this that he was even more calm. Everything that Zhang Feng had done before, which one of them was methodical. Although Li Chengqian's words were very correct, as long as he exposed his identity or used other methods to stop Zhang Feng, today's matter would be temporarily resolved. But he knew that although this matter could be forcefully suppressed today, gossip was a fearful thing. Otherwise, old man Yuqi, who was hiding in the dark, would have already made his move. Why wait until now? Young Master Li, let's wait first. Fengzi naturally has his own way of dealing with this. Niu Jindao finally said. Especially the three words, young Master Li. Li Chengqian's eyes were scarlet red as he stared at Zhang Feng, somewhat unable to control his emotions. Niu Jinda, this prince orders you to quickly kill these people for this prince. This prince will bear the consequences alone. Li Chengqian. Niu Jinda finally exploded. With a gloomy face, he shouted in a low voice. Do you still remember what your father said? Without the emperor's decree, no one is allowed to expose their identity. Have you thought about the consequences if your identity is really exposed today? The emperor and the crown prince are personally cultivating their own forces in Mount E. If this were to spread, it would cause unrest in the entire imperial court. Have you thought about this? Moreover, the emperor should already know about the current situation. The emperor didn't send an order, which means that the emperor wants Fengzi to deal with it himself. Also, do you see the person lying there? Yesterday he was still one of you, and also Fengzi's brother. Have you thought about what Fengzi would think if we were to interfere? While speaking, Niu Jinda kneeled on one knee and cupped his fist, solemnly saying, Your Highness, please calm down. While speaking, Niu Jinda looked around. Wei Shuyu and the others all knelt down in shock. Your Highness, please calm down. All of this was short-lived, and everyone was talking in low voices. Coupled with the noise at this time, everyone was attracted by Zhang Feng, so no one noticed. But so what if they did notice? Li Chengqian was the son of the second master Lao Li that the emperor made up. He was also the second shopkeeper of the Li Chamber of Commerce. It was natural for them to kneel. Under normal circumstances, it wouldn't attract too much attention. At this moment his chest was still heaving up and down. However, when he heard the word emperor, he slowly relaxed, but his eyes were still fixed on Zhang Feng. At this moment, after discussing with the other families, the young man surnamed Tang said with a fake smile, Prince Zhang, President Zhang, we really don't know about today's matter, and we don't know the cause. But we do know that the cause is whether the phosphate fertilizer is poisonous or not. As long as Prince Zhang can prove that it's not poisonous, then today's matter will be easy to deal with. Zhang Feng was so angry that he laughed. He faintly grinned, revealing his white teeth, and asked, "Then in your opinion, what should I do? What if I don't agree?" The young man surnamed Tang spread out his hands and said, "If Prince Zhang doesn't take it out, then there's nothing we can do. Just now, we saw clearly that these soldiers, as well as the people from the Prince Zhang Academy, killed people in public. According to the laws of the Tang dynasty, those who kill should be killed. Even if Prince Zhang doesn't know about this, I'm afraid that Prince Zhang and his family will be banished to the frontier, and will never be able to go back to the capital. If Prince Zhang really takes out the evidence, then we will definitely dissuade all of this and announce to the world that these are all rumors." Zhang Feng heard this and couldn't help but laugh. Yu Shinan and the others couldn't hold it in anymore. They all denounced the young man surnamed Tang and the others. Jia Eru even brandished his sword, and was about to chop them down. But in the end they were all stopped by Zhang Feng. If Gao Can hadn't stopped them, the young man surnamed Tang might have been killed on the spot. The young man surnamed Tang and the others saw Zhang Feng's reaction, and couldn't figure out what Zhang Feng was thinking. They hurriedly said, "Zhang Feng, you have to think it through clearly. Even though you're a viscount and the chancellor of White Deer Academy, you're still young in the end. Moreover, your position is too low. All of us are important officials in the court, so you have to think it through." Zhang Feng stopped laughing. Instead, his expression gradually turned cold. He stared coldly at the young man surnamed Tang and said indifferently, "Do you think you're worthy?" "You." The young man surnamed Tang's expression suddenly changed. He said in an extremely cold voice, "You refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Good, very good. We won't interfere in today's matter, and we will truthfully report everything you've done today to the emperor." Wait. Chapter 1372. At this moment, Shiva hurriedly squeezed forward. Zhang Feng was about to stop him, but Shiva winked at him to reassure him. Tang and the others were here for the phosphate fertilizer and other things. Now that someone had admitted defeat, and it was one of Zhang Feng's people, Zhang Feng did not stop him. He seemed to think that Zhang Feng had admitted defeat only because of his reputation. That was why he called for a scapegoat. However, Shiva's action shocked Yu Shinan and the others. They hurriedly scolded him. "Shiva, back off. Don't speak nonsense. Shiva, this is not the place for you to mess around. Let Fengzi handle everything. Back off." At this moment, Li Chengqian and the others also rushed over and hurriedly dissuaded him. "Fengzi, if it's inconvenient for you, let me do it. That's right, back off. Watch me tear this little bastard to shreds. Fengzi, let me do it." However, Zhang Feng waved his hand and said, "Let him do it." Shiva was the prince of Jinla. Zhang Feng was not worried about his eloquence. As for Li Chengqian, he was stopped by Zhang Feng. What a joke. With Li Chengqian's temper, he was far from being a match for Tang. As for the others, forget it. If they said something wrong, they would immediately attack. This would only make things worse. As for Du Dabing, although he was eloquent, and Zhang Feng had seen his mouth before, what kind of place was this? If he said something wrong, there would be a big mess. Zhang Feng didn't dare to let him come. As for Shiva's initiative to step forward at this moment, and even gave him a reassuring look, Zhang Feng was a little surprised. He seemed to have just remembered that although this guy was a little silly, he did not seem to have shown his talent. Besides, how bad could it be? He was going to kill someone today. He did not care. When the young man with the surname Tang and the others heard Shiva's name, they looked at Shiva in astonishment and said, "I've long heard that the crown prince of Jinla went up the mountain to study. Could it be that you're the prince of Jinla?" Shiva laughed coldly. "That's me. However, today is not the time for you to make friends with me. If it was before today, or if you didn't die today, this prince would have wanted to get to know you." Oh. Without waiting for Tang to finish his sentence, Shiva continued, "Today my teacher is a little angry because of what happened to my brother. Therefore, as his student, it is better for me to say some things. To put it bluntly, these people were all found by you. Your purpose is actually for the phosphate fertilizer, isn't it? You're lying. How can we associate ourselves with these vulgar servants? We are of noble status. How could we do such a despicable thing? You're just a little country prince. What qualifications do you have to judge us? Step down. The anger of the Tang family and the others did not make Shiva cower. Instead, he said firmly, "You've found the wrong person to ask about what you want today. This phosphate fertilizer is actually produced by me. Why don't you ask me?" As the crown prince of a country, I can guarantee that although this phosphate fertilizer was poisonous in the beginning, do you know what the masks on your mouths are for? Don't tell me you didn't use your pig brains to ask and think about it when you got this thing. This is something used to prevent poisoning when extracting the phosphate fertilizer. The reason it is extracted is to extract something useful from this poison. As he spoke, Shiva turned around to look at the group of troublemakers behind him and said, "Do you think you'll get the phosphate fertilizer you want by doing this today? You're thinking too much. I don't know what benefits you've obtained before today, but I can say that this money is the money you've earned by selling your lives. After today, regardless of whether my teacher and the imperial court do anything to you, the people who bought your lives will not let any of you off." "What?" everyone exclaimed in shock. Some people couldn't help but ponder slightly. The expressions of the youth surnamed Tang, and the others suddenly changed. "Don't listen to his nonsense. We definitely didn't think that way." "Oh." Shiva smiled and said, "Are you admitting that you're the one who hired these people?" This time, the youth surnamed Tang finally realized that he had been tricked. He was so angry that his face turned pale. "Son of a bitch, who do you think you are? Do you think you're qualified to stir up trouble? Whether it's true or not, you're an outsider. You're not allowed to meddle in the affairs of the Tang dynasty. In the morning court tomorrow, old man will definitely impeach you, Zhang Feng, for allowing outsiders to study the classics. Do you know that the laws of the Tang dynasty clearly state that outsiders are not allowed to study the classics? Just you wait, old man." Zhang Feng smiled coldly. He glanced at Shiva and didn't make a sound. Yu Shernan and the others also looked at Shiva with some surprise. They really didn't notice this kid. They didn't expect him to be so meticulous. Shiva said unhurriedly, "Then I'll have to trouble you to inform the emperor. I've already received the emperor's approval before coming here. I'm not here as a student, but as a servant. I'm now President Zhang Feng's servant." Chapter 1373. This play. It was out of Mr. Tang's expectations. He originally thought that he could use this matter to turn the tables, but he did not expect that he was allowed to come here by the emperor's permission. What's more, he was actually Zhang Feng's errand boy. This made things a little difficult for him. However, he immediately thought of a solution. "Are you deliberately trying to lure us into a trap? We're only here to deal with the phosphate fertilizer. We have no interest in your business." "That's right. Kid, since you said that you were in charge of refining the phosphate fertilizer, well, have you seen with your own eyes that this thing can really double the income of the Zhuang family? Why hasn't there been any record of this thing in any book since ancient times, or even in the unofficial history? Don't talk nonsense. If there is, doesn't that mean that Zhang Feng deliberately didn't take it out? He was waiting for this year's locust plague and food shortage to happen. All these things were done on purpose?" That's right. Lao Tzu had long realized that something was wrong. How could his shabby little tavern have so much money? How could he stock up so much food before the disaster happened? This is clearly a conspiracy. As they spoke, the people from the other families were furious. They raised their arms and shouted, "Fellow villagers, did you see that? This person is so vicious. If he had such a thing, why didn't he take it out earlier? Why did he wait until now to take it out? This means that this kid already knew about the locust plague and the food shortage. This is all part of this kid's conspiracy. He's trying to set us up." This time, everyone was in an uproar. Even the onlookers, as well as those who still believed in Zhang Feng and those hooligans, were a little confused. Why didn't they hear about this from the beginning? And why didn't Zhang Feng mention this before the food shortage started? Why did he have to wait until now? Most importantly, Why did Zhang Feng stock up on food? No matter how they looked at it, it seemed to be intentional. This was a conspiracy. However, at this moment, the people of Tong Huifang and the Chang, and people who were beaten up by those people were furious. T. Even if I told you earlier, would you believe that the food shortage is real? If Prince Zhang had told you earlier, would you have believed him? Idiots, fools, you're all just a bunch of ingrates. If it wasn't for Zhang Feng's life-saving food, I'm afraid all of you would have starved to death by now. How can I allow you to stay here? Look at this bunch of bastards. What did they do during the famine? They deliberately raised the price of food. Even if His Majesty ordered them to help the victims, what did they take out? It's rancid rice bran. You bastards, you've been tricked and you're still counting money for him. The battle lasted for 4 hours. It was only when Sun Simiao angrily stepped forward that they finally stopped. As for those large clans, when they saw Sun Simiao come out, they were even more enraged. After all, if Sun Simiao didn't show up, they could still do something. But now that Sun Simiao showed up, how could these hoodlums dare to act rashly? Elder Sun, a middle-aged man in his 50s from the Bai clan, stepped forward and bowed to Sun Simiao, but Sun Simiao acted as if he didn't see him. He snorted coldly and returned to Zhang Feng's side, saying, "Old man's herb garden uses phosphate fertilizer. You said it's poisonous? Were you blind 2 days ago? Didn't you go to the East Market entrance? Old man, do you remember that you saw it that day? And the purpose of your visit today is to force Zhang Feng to hand over the formula. Why do you have to be so dignified? But old man said it today. If you want this thing, you'll have to go through old man first." The Bai clan's people were embarrassed. Hearing Sun Simiao's words, they could only stiffen their necks and say, "Elder Sun, you've been deceived by this kid. This kid obviously has a big conspiracy. Can't you see it? Shut up. You bastard, Lao Tzu has long disliked you. What conspiracy does my master have? Why don't you tell us? I think it's you bastards who are jealous of this thing. Today King killed my brother here. The phosphate fertilizer is easy to deal with. Before we talk about this, let's talk about how to deal with my brother's matter first." At this time, Cheng Chimo Wei Shuyu and Zhang Sun could no longer sit still. They all jumped up. This time, they said something that they didn't want to hear. They couldn't help but panic. They looked at Sun Simiao, Yu Shinan, and the others, wanting to find a breakthrough from them. However, they found that these people had retreated to the back and were looking at Zhang Feng. At this time, Zhang Feng was holding an unknown thing in one hand and a dagger in the other. He was playing with it. At this time, everyone understood. After saying so much, to put it bluntly, they didn't intend to let them go. At this time, they wanted to leave, but when they turned around, they saw that the densely packed Chang and garrison had surrounded them. There were even more than 100 soldiers wearing golden armor. Golden armor. They were the Jinwu guards. Could it be that the emperor? At this time, the Tang clan, Bai clan, Mi clan, and Gao clan panicked. Zhang Feng, everything today is a misunderstanding. What do you want? Young friend Zhang Feng, we have nothing to do with this today. We just happened to come up the mountain. We will go down the mountain now. How you want to deal with today's matter is your business. We will not say a word to anyone else. President Zhang, this is all a misunderstanding. We can't wait. Chapter 1374. What's going on? This time, the hooligans and shrews panicked. They didn't know what was going on. It looked like they were about to get what they wanted. What's going on? What are you guys doing at this critical juncture? At this time, there was no lack of people with sharp eyes. They saw the garrisons and the soldiers in golden armor in the distance. These people were really. It was hard not to attract attention. This time, the group of people panicked. Mother****, you bastards. Didn't you say it was Lord Kongingda who instructed you to do this? Didn't you say that as long as we spread rumors this time, you would take responsibility for anything? Mother****, why are you so scared now? Mother****, say something. Mother****, you just gave Lao Tzu 10 strings of cash and you want Lao Tzu's life. What? Didn't you say it was only 5 strings of cash? Why do you have so many? Motherf asterisk cur you scammers. Zhang Feng looked at them coldly. Li Chengqian and the others were also cold and murderous. But Zhang Feng didn't say anything and no one dared to move. At this time the Gao family couldn't sit still anymore. They hurriedly tried to shirk responsibility. The farce finally came to an end amidst the sharp sound of the wind being torn apart. Whoosh! Poochie! When the voice rang out, everyone was horrified to see that a descendant of a large clan seemed to want to take advantage of the chaos to escape. However, he was shot to death by a distant golden-armored soldier with an indifferent expression. At this time, they all changed into arrows and stared at them indifferently. In an instant, the fear of death made the crowd recognize the reality. This time some hooligans finally recognized Li Chengqian and the others. Someone shouted in horror. Aren't they the 4 demon kings of Chang'an? They are really in this academy? What? They really are. Oh my god. The news that the 4 great demon kings had gone to White Deer College had spread like wildfire in Chang'an City. However, most people had never seen the 4 great demon kings before, let alone know who they were. Furthermore, it was rumored that the 4 great demon kings couldn't stand the sight of hooligans. Once they saw them, they would beat them to death. Furthermore, it was said that they would never pay for killing someone. This made them take a detour whenever they heard about the 4 great demon kings. How could they know them? Therefore, although they already knew about the rumors about the 4 great demon kings at White Deer College, and secretly rejoiced, they had forgotten about it because the 4 great demon kings hadn't shown themselves for a long time. If these people hadn't mentioned it today, how could they have thought of it? Even if they managed to escape today, how would they dare to stay in Chang'an City? Involuntarily, the crowd began to tremble. Some of them could not even stand properly and directly knelt down. When Tang and the others saw this, they were scared out of their wits. Only then did they remember that Zhang Feng had given something to someone. It seemed that he had gone to the palace. Then they thought about how the Jinwu guards had acted so unscrupulously. Could it be, did the emperor give Zhang Feng the right to kill people? When he thought of this and the people who had tried to escape and were killed, Tang couldn't help but feel his legs and stomach cramps. He no longer had the arrogance he had at the beginning. Prince Zhang, Lord Zhang, President Zhang, Mr. He, everything that happened today was a misunderstanding. We didn't mean anything else. Haha. Zhang Feng smiled coldly and slowly stood up. He looked at Tang and the others, then at the hooligans who were trembling in fear. Now you know how to admit defeat. No. I, Zhang Feng, won't accept it. You should be more firm. That's how a man should be. The members of the Tang, Bai Mi, and Gao families all wanted to cry. How could they be firm? They hurriedly came forward to apologize and beg for mercy. Mr. He, as the saying goes, no discord, no concord. Besides, we didn't mean anything else. We just wanted to know if the phosphate fertilizer was real or fake. Now that we know that the phosphate fertilizer can really increase the grain yield, we won't delay any longer. After all, we are all busy. That's right, President Zhang. Our Bai family has always believed in your character. By the way, our Bai family's children have been playing with the basketball you made. Moreover, we've been taking care of the business for everything you've produced. Little friend Zhang Feng, everything that happened today was caused by this kid from the Tang family. If you want to blame someone, blame him. He insisted that we come up the mountain to see if the phosphate fertilizer was real or fake. We saw Dr. Sun's yellow ginger with our own eyes 2 days ago. But this kid said that he wanted to take a look and pay you a visit. That's why we came. Yes. Today, it was all instigated by this little bastard from the Tang family. If you want to blame someone, blame him. We are all innocent. Zhang Feng looked coldly at the clown-like crowd and smiled. Now you want to admit defeat? Chapter 1375. Where's your sense of shame? Weren't you all so arrogant just now? Weren't you going to beat people to death when they didn't agree with you? Why don't you fight now? Lao Tzu has been on the battlefield for decades, but I've never seen such shameless things like you. Where's your sense of shame? You dare to do it, but you don't dare to admit it? Cripple Wang's face was covered with blood and his face was distorted. He supported the old village chief as they limped into the crowd, as if they were looking for something. A moment later, Cripple Wang grabbed a local ruffian and said, "Fengzi, this is the bastard who killed brother Qian Wanli. Bastard, he tied me up at that time. I watched him make a rope and put a weight on the rope. After he knocked Qian Wanli to the ground, he smashed him with the weight. And he and the others, it was these bastards who wanted to kill him. If old Ma and Jia Eru hadn't come in time, perhaps all the people at the mountain gate would have been killed by these bastards. What are you waiting for? Let's kill him now." Bastard. At this moment, Gao Can, who had been silently guarding behind Zhang Feng, roared and rushed forward with bloodshot eyes. Zhang Feng didn't stop him. He just looked at the young man with the surname Tang and said, "Gao can kill them one by one. Cut off their heads and send them to brother Qian Wanli." This time, the group of people panicked. "Tang, say something. Young Master Tang, save us. You said that if anything happens, you'll take care of us." "Bastard Tang, Lao Tzu will be a ghost. Poochie." Their shouting didn't last long. Gao Can's head was smashed with a few punches. After all, Gao Can was born with great strength, and he was angry at this time. Moreover, he was dull and didn't have many brothers who could talk to him, but this Qian Wanli really treated him as a brother. If it wasn't for Zhang Feng, he would have killed them all. At this time, when he heard Cripple Wang and the others describe Qian Wanli's death, he couldn't bear it anymore. Even if he killed him later, he would have no regrets. But Zhang Feng still let him do it. This time he couldn't bear it anymore. Cheng Chimo and the others wanted to attack, but Niu Jinda, who was hiding behind the crowd, ordered them to hold on to them. If Gao Can and the others wanted to kill someone, so be it. However, if the few of them dared to go up and kill someone, and if they were to be exposed to the court, it would lead to a great disaster. This time, although it seemed that these big clans were stirring up trouble, don't forget that there was a pair of invisible big hands behind all of this. At this time, Zhang Feng didn't make a move. It seemed that he was thinking about whether he could find a clue of the big hands, and let these people fight each other. Otherwise, why would Zhang Feng wait until now? At this time, those people might be watching all of this from here. In fact, Zhang Feng did have such thoughts. After all, why would these people coincidentally want to kill Qian Wanli? Zhang Feng didn't believe that it was a manslaughter. After all, with the lesson of the past, Zhang Feng had been on guard and tracking down the person behind the scenes. But at this time, such an idiotic thing happened. It was hard for Zhang Feng not to think about it. At this time, under the old village chief's accusation, Gao Can kept killing people, using the same method as Qian Wanli to kill them. Zhang Feng was also carefully watching the eyes of the young man surnamed Tang, and the people of these big clans. He didn't let go of anyone within sight. But Zhang Feng's actions seemed to make the young man surnamed Tang panic. He hurriedly said, "Prince Zhang, Mr. Hsian, these things really weren't done by me." Those people who were already scared out of their wits had already collapsed when they saw Gao Can's terrifying killing methods and the pungent smell of blood. When they heard the young man surnamed Tang say so, they instantly screamed, "Tang, don't talk nonsense. Everything we did was instructed by you. When they were killing people, you were watching from the second floor of the inn. You deliberately told us to quickly kill the guards at the mountain gate and rush up the mountain. Now you don't have any guts, do you? You don't want to admit it, do you?" At this time, Gao Can's fist was still dripping blood. When he lifted the long-tongued woman with a broken arm from the ground, the woman collapsed and screamed. Zhang Feng's interest was piqued. He waved his hand to stop Gao Can and asked, "You're saying that he's here watching, and that he instructed you to watch? Do you have proof? Say it. As long as what you say is true, I, Zhang Feng, will keep my word and won't kill you." When the young man surnamed Tang heard this, his face instantly changed. "Bitch. Xiu's nonsense. When did this young master instruct?" "Noisy." Zhang Feng glanced at the young man surnamed Tang, and then looked coldly at the woman again. The woman was already trembling all over. How could she bear it at this time? She hurriedly said everything she knew. There were even many people who testified. Zhang Feng couldn't help but be interested. "Old Ma, go and find the owner of the inn." "No, find everyone." The young man surnamed Tang panicked. He hurriedly said, Prince Zhang, let's talk things out. I'm an official of the imperial court. No matter how big a crime I committed, I'll be interrogated by the Ministry of Justice, and then handed over to Marble. You. Zhang Feng waved his hand and interrupted him. He sighed and said, It's too late. Chapter 1376. If you hadn't killed anyone in the beginning, I, Zhang Feng, would have handed you over to Marble for investigation. However, you killed my brother and kept spouting nonsense. Do you think you can leave this place today? If you don't give me an explanation, how can I, Zhang Feng, give Qian Wanli's parents an explanation? How can I give an explanation to anyone who wants to study at White Deer College? How can I give an explanation to myself? This time, everyone was aghast. The youth surnamed Tang's heart was like dead ashes. His eyes were filled with malevolence as he said, Zhang Feng, don't be ungrateful. My father-in-law is a third-rank official of the Chamberlain of Dependencies. I'm a fifth-rank supervisor of the Chamberlain of Dependencies. Who do you think you are? What right do you have to convict me? Then, old man might convict you. At this moment, Li Xiaogong rode his horse slowly into the area with a frosty expression. Wherever he passed, a group of imperial guards would clear the path. When they saw Li Xiaogong arrive, Yu Shinan and the others finally breathed a sigh of relief. They weren't afraid that something would go wrong here today. What a joke! With Niu Jinda and Yu Qigong here, the Chang and military camp activated, and more than 1,000 imperial guards on the mountain. How could anything go wrong? What they were afraid of was that Zhang Feng would go on a killing spree. This was something they didn't want to see. Li Xiaogong's appearance undoubtedly gave the youth surname Tang, and the others a glimmer of hope. Although Li Xiaogong had always been very strict, he also liked to do things according to the rules. At least nothing would happen here today. As long as they entered the Supreme Court, everything could be done. Zhang Feng nodded slightly at Li Xiaogong. Li Xiaogong nodded and dismounted his horse. He looked at Qian Wanli's corpse, then solemnly tidied his clothes. He looked around and said, By the Emperor's personal decree. Instantly, everyone's expression changed greatly. They all knelt on the ground. Apart from Zhang Feng and the 4 great Confucian scholars, only Sun Simiao and Li Xiaogong were still standing in the market. After everyone knelt down, Li Xiaogong said, Shao Mountain was originally the fief that I gave to Zhang Feng. Besides, he made trouble at the academy. According to the laws of the Tang dynasty, there is a law of killing first and reporting later. I am very angry about what happened today. Please pardon him. While speaking, Li Xiaogong sighed. He looked at Zhang Feng and said, Pardon Zhang Feng to investigate this matter thoroughly. Autumn planting is the foundation of the country, and no one is allowed to sway it. Today, Zhang Feng has developed such a divine object for the Tang dynasty, but someone wants to disregard the Tang dynasty and take it for himself. This is a matter that angers both men and gods. I am extremely angry, and wish I could kill him with my own hands. Today, I pardon Zhang Feng's right of life and death until the truth is found out and justice is served to the deceased. In addition, I am very sad that the deceased was a student of the academy. Today, I confer Qian Wanli the title of County Baron, which is hereditary. That's it. This time everyone was in an uproar. It should be noted that the emperor had never advocated a massacre. The emperor should know how many people were involved in today's incident. This time, all the local clans in Chang'an were basically wiped out. Moreover, it also involved hundreds of civilians here. Normally, the emperor would consider such a matter carefully. Who would have thought that he would give Zhang Feng the right of life and death so quickly? That meant, from now on, Zhang Feng would have the right of life and death no matter what happened here? At this time, the young man surnamed Tang's expression suddenly changed. The people of the Mi, Bai, and Gao families also panicked. As for those local hooligans, how could they still have a glimmer of hope? What was that? That was an imperial edict. It was an imperial edict from the emperor himself. At this moment, everyone was angry. They immediately pointed the spearhead at the young man surnamed Tang. After reading the imperial edict, Li Xiaogong patted Zhang Feng on the shoulder and said, The emperor said that Qian Wanli's title can be inherited by anyone in his family. Moreover, he can reward the Qian family with everything you seize this time as a reward. After that, Li Xiaogong looked coldly at the people of the Tang family and said, "You all heard it clearly. What Zhang Feng said before doesn't count. What about this imperial edict and old man's words? His Majesty has said that since all of you are from big clans in Chang, and as long as you tell us who is the mastermind behind all of this, you will be given a lighter punishment. Otherwise, it has been a long time since someone from the Tang Empire was implicated. Zhang Feng, old man will go take care of these families first. After you are done here, meet up with the Tang family." After that, Li Xiaogong left in a hurry again. Li Xiaogong's words reminded Zhang Feng of something. He had no intention of letting this group of bastards off today. Moreover, the imperial edict had been delivered personally by Li Xiaogong. Moreover, the last sentence seemed to have some hidden meaning. Zhang Feng glanced at Qian Wanli and shouted, "Pass down the message. Everyone in White Deer College is to bow. Gao Can, come with me to Chang'an. We will settle the score." After that, Zhang Feng looked at Qian Wanli and bowed deeply. Yu Shinan and the others did the same. However, at this moment, the young man surnamed Tang and the others exploded. They hurriedly knelt down and begged for mercy. Zhang Feng turned a deaf ear to them and led Gao Can and Shiva to Chang'an. At this moment, Jia Eru hurriedly asked, "Dean, may I ask, what should we do with these people?" Zhang Feng glanced at everyone. "Do as you wish." Chapter 1377. What happened on the mountain finally came to an end when thousands of people were escorted to the Chang and military camp. Zhang Feng was furious. He wanted to kill all of them. But he also knew that it was not a good time to kill. At the very least, he couldn't give up until he found out who was behind it. He couldn't give Qian Wanli an explanation. After Zhang Feng left the academy, the sound of horns and drums never stopped. All the students knew what happened at the foot of the mountain, and what happened to Qian Wanli. Everyone in the academy was furious. All the students wanted to chop those people into pieces. But they didn't give up until they knew that those people ended up worse than death. At the same time, all the students knew that Zhang Feng dared to kill the 4 big clans in Chang, and for a student. At this moment, the hearts of all the students in the academy were burning. With such a dean who only wanted to protect them, if they didn't work hard, they would really be letting the dean down. Yu Shinan and the other 3 compiled a 3,000-word eulogy for Qian Wanli, and sent it down the mountain as fast as possible. Zhang Feng didn't carry Qian Wanli on his back. Instead, he asked someone to find the best coffin in Chang, and bought all the firecrackers in Chang'an. He wore mourning clothes and stood in front of the coffin. He held the sole leading banner and led Cheng Chimo and the others to Chang'an City. Ma Zhou and the others were carrying the coffin. Everyone in the Ji Mountain Market, no matter if they were merchants, children, or people from the Tonghui Square, they all came to Qian Wanli's funeral. The firecrackers never stopped along the way. Li Shimin, who was in the imperial palace, could hear the sound of firecrackers clearly. Hearing the sound of firecrackers, Li Shimin's face became more and more gloomy. As for Wei Zheng and the others, they remained silent with solemn expressions. At this moment, Xiao Gizi came to Li Shimin in a hurry with the information from the spy. "Your Majesty, Prince Zhang is wearing mourning clothes to see young Master Qian off." When Li Shimin heard this, he thought to himself, "Did the Qian family tell them about this?" Yes, and it was the people from the Minister of State. Not only that, but the Dean of the Imperial College, Hongwen Guan, also went to Xiao Mountain. When Li Shimin heard this, his expression eased a little. "At least they are tactful. Did you see anyone else, such as people from the 5 surnames and 7 clans?" "Well," Xiao Gizi hesitated for a moment and said, "Your Majesty, they haven't been found out yet. However, the whole of Chang'an is in a state of panic. The Tang, Bai Mi, and Gao families are wandering around and visiting the mansions of the officials. Go and find out who they visited. I want to see who dares to stand up for them today." Wei Zheng heard this and hurriedly said, "Your Majesty, the officials of those families are kneeling outside Taiji Palace. Some have even gone to find the concubines. At this time, there are also people in the imperial harem who have gone to plead with the Empress. What should we do?" Plead with the empress? Li Shimin sneered and said. Anyone who dares to go to the imperial harem will be dealt with as if they are causing trouble in the imperial harem. I want to see which concubine dares to stand up for them. Zhang Sun Wuji coughed and said, Your Majesty, concubine Tang and concubine Gao are both from these families. Although they are side relatives, but, as long as they dare to do it according to the law. Xiao Gizi, you personally supervise this matter. Xiao Gizi heard this and said in horror, Yes. Was the emperor going to take this opportunity to clean up the imperial harem? Or was he going to take this opportunity to clean up the big families in Chang'an? After all, the last time Kong Yingda, that old fellow, had stopped the emperor from taking back the excess land in their hands. Now that he was investigating these families, the emperor was obviously making a mountain out of a molehill. However, the most important thing was that the emperor had followed Zhang Feng's temper and went with the flow. Although they knew, Xiao Gizi did not dare to mention it. After all, this would definitely make tomorrow's morning court very lively. And at this time, the emperor was angry, so they did not dare to touch his reverse scale. But that was just that. Zhang Feng was really angry this time. Moreover, Zhang Feng's anger really gave all of them a big fright. Li Shimin was also shocked by Zhang Feng. But after learning the truth, Li Shimin felt that Zhang Feng was being too soft-hearted. These bastards, why did he give them so much time? Wouldn't it be better to kill them all? What a waste of time. At this thought, Li Shimin thought of Kong Yingda. If this bastard did not do something superfluous and secretly went up the mountain in spite of the imperial edict, how could he have caused so much trouble? And at this time, Li Shimin did not know what would happen in the future because of this matter. At this thought, Li Shimin was furious. Pass down the imperial edict, order the Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Appointments, Dali Temple, Taifu Temple, Taichung Temple, and Guanglu Temple to cooperate to thoroughly investigate Kong Yingda. Kong Yingda is to be put in the imperial prison, and all his properties are to be found. Anyone who dares to complain about his injustice is to be arrested. This. Wei Zheng and the others' faces changed instantly. He hurriedly said, Your Majesty, Duke Kong might not know about this. These people must have deliberately framed Duke Kong. Li Shimin waved his hand and said, I have decided. Chapter 1378. Wei Zheng and the others still wanted to say something. But when they saw the emperor acting like this, they could only sigh secretly. After all, Kong Yingda was too stubborn. Since he came back from Shao Mountain, which one of the things he did could make the emperor happy? That thing alone was enough to make the emperor angry, but the emperor had been restraining himself. Who knew that such a disgusting thing would happen at this time? It would be strange if the emperor didn't get angry. At this time, the emperor's intention was very clear. He just wanted to kill him. At this time it was useless for anyone to plead. After an hour, in the whole Chang'an city, firecrackers were constantly being set off in two places. The first place was Qian Tong's mansion. At this time, the whole mansion was full of sadness. Everyone was neatly dressed in mourning clothes and nervously arranging the mourning hall. In the Qian mansion, old man Qian knelt in front of the Buddha statue, his eyes dull. No matter how the maid persuaded him, it was useless. He seemed to have lost his mind. As for Qian Tong, the moment he learned of Qian Wanli's death, he aged about 10 years in an instant. He was in his 40s, but now he looked like an old man in his 80s. He sat at the door of the living room in a daze, staring at the door with dull eyes. At the gate of Chang'an City, a long funeral procession slowly appeared. Gao family, Bai family, Tang family, and Mi family were all arrested in various parts of the city. Even their mansions were sealed by the imperial guards. At this time, they were arresting people all over the street. Everyone in Chang'an City didn't know what had happened to cause such a strange situation at this time. However, when the imperial guard appeared outside the Kong Manor and announced the emperor's decree, everyone suddenly realized that the events that happened on this desolate mountain today had a huge connection with these people. Now everyone was even more confused. Especially when they saw Zhang Feng wearing mourning clothes, they were even more shocked. What did this mean? What was going on? The dean of White Deer College was wearing mourning clothes? When they connected this to the sudden sound of firecrackers in the Qian residence, as well as the setting up of the morning hall, everyone suddenly thought of an inconceivable matter. Qian Tong's son, Qian Wanli, was studying at White Deer College. Could it be Qian Wanli? For a time the whole Chang'an city was full of different opinions, but no one knew the truth. It wasn't until the people from Tong Huifang, who were at the back of the funeral procession, arrived that the crowd hurriedly gathered around and began to inquire. There was no need to rush this inquiry. In an instant, everyone was furious. The Tang family, Mi family, and Bai family had actually instigated a group of hooligans and gossipy women to cause trouble at White Deer College. They wanted to force Dean Zhongfeng to give them something that could increase the food supply. However, this group of B***stards and hooligans had committed all kinds of crimes. They would beat people up if they didn't get along with them. When Qian Wanli saw this, they had evil intentions and killed him. Moreover, it was said that he died very miserably. He was smashed to death with a weight. How could this be? Was there any King law here? The most despicable thing was that after they killed him, they wanted to kill the guards while he was unprepared. They wanted to take advantage of the chaos to go up the mountain. If they were allowed to go up the mountain, the consequences, it wouldn't be solved by just one death. At this moment, Dean Zhongfeng would probably. The most important thing was, all of this was instigated by the Tang family, Gao family, Mi family, and Bai family. Moreover, they were stirring up trouble in Chang'an's name. In an instant, everyone was furious. They were furious. During this period of time, Zhang Feng's reputation in Chang'an city had been very good. Moreover, he was kind and never fussed over every ounce. Moreover, he was generous with his money. Whether it was the meat that they couldn't afford or the fine salt, which one of them wasn't made by Zhang Feng? What the F***ck? What were these people thinking? Everyone followed the funeral procession or picked up their tools and walked towards the residences of the Bai family, Mi family, Tang family, and Gao family. They were often cheated by these people. Now was the best time for them to take revenge. Moreover, some people hurriedly picked up their hoes and ran towards the Kong family's residence. If it wasn't for that B***starred Chang'an, would such a thing have happened at White Deer College? Needless to say, their chances of doing small business in Shaoshan Market Square were even slimmer. However, this made them even more excited. If that was the case, it meant that the phosphate fertilizer that Zhang Feng made was real. The thing that could double the harvest of grain was real. This was what they were most concerned about. At this moment, the entire Chang'an city was in a mess. Niu Weili rolled up his sleeves and stood on the street, fuming with anger. When he saw the people of these families, as well as those hooligans and gossipy women, he invited them all into the Chang'an local government for tea. At this moment, the Kong family's residence was the quietest. Chang'an sat alone at the entrance of the mansion, allowing the people to curse and scold him. He did not fight back, nor did he talk back. At this moment, his body was covered in stinky poop, and rotten eggs and vegetables were all over his body. However, he still sat there in a daze. He seemed to be waiting for something. After a while, the clamorous sound of horse hooves gradually quieted down the gate of the Kong family's residence. A middle-aged man in the uniform of the provincial secretary got off the horse, glanced at Chang'an with some disgust, and then directly announced the imperial edict. The imperial edict is here. In an instant, everyone in the Kong family's residence came out of the gate and knelt neatly in front of the middle-aged man. However, Chang'an still didn't move. Seeing this, the officials of the provincial secretary were furious. According to the edict of the emperor, Chang'an disregarded the emperor's grace and secretly sneaked to Shao Mountain, leaked secrets, and spread bad information, which caused today's turmoil in Shao Mountain. He should be punished. According to the edict, all the properties of the Kong family are to be seized and all the people in the Kong family are to be detained in the Supreme Court. They will be severely punished by Taichung Temple, Supreme Court, Taifu Temple, Taichung Temple, and Ministry of Personnel and Ministry of Justice. Chapter 1379. Chang'an felt very sad. Although Chang'an already knew these things when he came back from the market on Mount Shao that day, He understood when he heard the imperial edict. Everything was over. And he knew everything that happened today. The Tang family, the Bai family, the Mi family, and the Gao family had nothing to do with him. But Kong Yingda made a big mistake. That was, he said all the things he shouldn't say. At that time, he didn't think much about it. But after knowing what happened on the mountain today, Kong Yingda instantly understood everything. These people just wanted him to die. They used his name to make trouble on Mount Xiao, and it was such a thing. Even if he didn't do it, who would believe it? Even the emperor wouldn't believe it, right? At this time, looking at the imperial guards entering his mansion and hearing the crying of his family members behind him, Kong Yingda roared angrily, "Don't cry. If anyone cries, the old man will personally send him to hell. Lord Kong, this way please." At this time, a prisoner carriage made of red sandalwood slowly came to a stop in front of Kong Yingda. Behind these two prisoner carriages were two massive hemp ropes that were as thick as a baby's arm, covered in blood. They were currently being slowly unraveled by a dozen or so imperial guards. Meanwhile, the servants, and family members of the Kong family were all terrified. Kong Yingda looked at the imperial guards beside him, and then looked at the miserable scene behind him. He looked up to the sky and sighed. Thousands of miles of sorrowful autumn will chill people's hearts. Sigh. The imperial guard said coldly, "Kong Yingda, don't talk nonsense again. If you dare to talk nonsense again, I don't mind sealing your mouth. Do you know that it's because of you that Chang'an city is in chaos today? If it weren't for you, how could the emperor be so angry? You still think it's cold? If you had stayed at home and didn't run around, would this have happened? Okay, stop talking. Let's go." After all, Kong Yingda's identity was there, so he really couldn't say anything. At this time, he had to urge him. After all, Kong Yingda was not an ordinary person. This guy's influence was too great. If something happened on the way, the consequences, it was simply unimaginable. Last time, it was because of him that today's matter happened. If he said anything today, then he could only shut Kong Yingda's mouth. Kong Yingda glanced behind him. Everyone was skewered by the thick rope like a barbecue. How could this not make Kong Yingda sad? Back then, his doorstep was as crowded as a marketplace. Now looking at it again, other than those who beat him up when he was down, where else could a hanger-on stand up for him? Sigh. Kong Yingda sighed and slowly walked onto the prison carriage. He allowed the imperial guards to put the heavy chains on him and a collar with barbs around his neck. After that, the long line of prisoners' wagons followed the wagons as they passed through the East Market. Then they walked along the main street of Chang'an and all the way to the prison of the Ministry of Justice. In an instant, along the way, all the citizens angrily rushed at the prisoner carriage and the person behind it. In a short while, all kinds of things were hung on the person's body. Even the imperial guards hid far away, for fear of being implicated. However, when the prisoner carriage reached the main street, Fang Xianling and Wei Jing appeared in front of the prisoner carriage. Looking at Kong Yingda, both of them were heartbroken. "Duke Kong." Fang Xianling sighed and cupped his hands. However, Kong Yingda acted as if he didn't see or hear. He stood stiffly on the prisoner carriage and didn't say a word. He didn't even blink. Seeing that Kong Yingda didn't speak, Wei Jing pulled Fang Xianling and said, "Let's get down to business. We'll visit him in the future." While speaking, Wei Jing came to the front of the prisoner carriage and took out a token from his sleeve. He waved it and said, "Duke Kong hasn't been adjudicated yet. Pay attention to your image. Also, without the emperor's permission, no one is allowed to bully Duke Kong and his family. Please settle them properly." Although Wei Jing and Fang Xianling had put on makeup, when the token appeared, the imperial guards at the front hurriedly got off their horses. Wei Jing whispered orders in the imperial guards' ears. After that, Wei Jing looked at the crowd again and said, "Pay attention to your appearance." Then, Wei Jing and Fang Xianling walked in the direction of the Qian family, looking back 3 times with every step. At this moment, the two of them couldn't help but feel a little anxious. Kong Yingda was too stubborn. If it wasn't for such a big thing happening today, why would the emperor arrest him? When Kong Yingda returned to Chang'an 2 days ago, the emperor already knew about it. However, the emperor had been standing his ground in the court and didn't make a decision on Chang'an. It wasn't until today that the emperor finally made a decision after learning that someone had died on the mountain, and Zhang Feng was furious. After all, it was the first time they saw Zhang Feng angry. No one knew what he would do. Moreover, it was the first time Zhang Feng gave Zhang Feng the pass to enter the palace and the blood jade talisman that the retired emperor didn't give out when he abdicated. This time, Zhang Feng took it out as well. What did this mean? It meant that Zhang Feng was really angry. If Zhang Feng came to Chang'an City to kill people, then the consequences. Feng Xianling patted Wei Zhang's shoulder bitterly and said, "Prime Minister Wei, let's go. I think Fengzi's funeral procession will arrive at the Qian family soon. We have to make some arrangements as soon as possible." Chapter 1380. The sound of firecrackers reverberated throughout Chang'an Street. Qian Wanli's funeral procession slowly appeared at the entrance of the East Market. At this moment, Niu Weili of the Chang'an local government, all the people in the local government, the Directorate of Imperial College, and the students of the Hongwen School appeared on the street one after another under the lead of Ouyang Kai and Lu Hongwen. Almost everyone in Chang'an City had gathered there in an instant. As the smoke and dust from the firecrackers gradually dissipated, Zhang Feng, dressed in mourning clothes, appeared in front of everyone with the soul-guiding banner held high. The first to react were naturally Lu Hongwen, Ouyang Kai, and Niu Weili. The three of them hurriedly blocked Zhang Feng. However, Zhang Feng walked forward with steady steps, not yielding an inch. Niu Weili was about to cry. He hurriedly said, "Prince Zhang, Mr. Zhang, can you please stop? What are you trying to do?" As he spoke, Niu Weili hurriedly signaled Lu Hongwen and Zhang Wuji with his eyes. Lu Hongwen sighed when he saw this and said, "Young Master Zhang, even though this young Master Qian is your brother, he's still your student. Wouldn't you be the laughingstock of all the students in the world if you do this? The nobles in Shandong are already unhappy with you. If you continue to do this, won't it give them an excuse to criticize you?" Zhang Feng looked ahead with a determined gaze, but was forced to stop in the end. Looking at the anxious and worried faces of the three, Zhang Feng said faintly, "The one lying in the coffin is indeed my student, but he is also my brother. My brother died in vain. As his brother, if I don't uphold justice for him and send him off, how will the world view me, Zhang Feng? How will the more than 3,000 students of White Deer College view me, Zhang Feng? If I don't stand up for them, who in the world will dare to send their sons to my college? If this goes on, won't our academy be trampled on by others?" This, in an instant. The three of them changed their expressions. Zhang Feng's words were very reasonable. However, there were laws in this country and rules in every family. Although the emperor had given him the power of life and death, it was still within the range of Shao Mountain. This was Chang'an City. If you really do something out of line, then wouldn't you be giving the court officials a reason to criticize you? Under the earnest persuasion of the three, Zhang Feng still chose to move forward. Zhang Feng shook his head slightly and said, "Everyone has a bottom line. I, Zhang Feng, have a very simple bottom line. I won't cause trouble, but don't provoke me either. I'm not a good person, but I'm definitely not a bad person. Whoever dares to touch my bottom line and provoke my people, no matter who's backing him, I, Zhang Feng, will make him pay a heavier price than now. Get out of the way. This has nothing to do with you." As he spoke, Zhang Feng moved forward again. Only Niu Weili and the others were left looking at him in shock. What did Zhang Feng mean? Could it be that Zhang Feng wanted to? At the thought of Zhang Feng's words, the three of them couldn't help but feel their souls leaving their bodies. Did Zhang Feng mean that he wanted the four families to be bathed in blood today? F***CK. Did this guy want to poke a hole in the sky? The three of them looked at each other in shock, and then said almost at the same time, "Quick, let's go to the Qian mansion." Although they didn't know the identity of Wei Zhang and the others for the time being, Zhang Feng was their brother, and they would definitely go to the Qian mansion to wait for him. Otherwise, why would the imperial guards arrest the people in these mansions first? Why would they arrest Chang'an? Wasn't it because they were afraid that Zhang Feng would start a killing spree at this time? Where was this place? This was Chang'an City, under the feet of the emperor. Once Zhang Feng really dared to start a killing spree, it would definitely alarm the emperor. Even if the emperor wanted to protect him, what would the ministers in the court think? Wouldn't he be impeached to death? Thinking of this, the three of them became more and more anxious. When everyone came to their senses, they instantly lost their composure and hurried to the Qian mansion. At this time, after hearing the slow sound of firecrackers, the people in the Qian mansion all got up and instinctively ran out of the door. The moment Qian Tong and old man Qian heard this sound, they couldn't help but tremble. The motionless old man Qian also slowly stood up at this time. She slowly walked towards the door, as if she was looking forward to it, but also worried at the same time. At this time, the housekeeper of the Qian mansion came from outside the door with a sad face. As soon as he entered the door, he shouted sadly, "Everyone, get ready to welcome the young master back." Buzz. This sound instantly made Qian Tong and Mrs. Qian lose their balance and fall to the ground. "Son." Mrs. Qian was the first one who couldn't help but shout at the top of her lungs. Then she burst into tears. Qian Tong's lips trembled as he stumbled towards the door with red eyes. "It's not true, it's not true. My son, how could he die? He even came back yesterday. This is a joke, right?" When Qian Tong came to the gate of the mansion, he saw Zhang Feng bowing respectfully at the gate. The moment they saw Qian Tong, Zhang Feng and all the mourners behind him bowed together. Zhang Feng said sadly, "Master Qian, Brother Wanli, you're back." Puff. Chapter 1381. Hearing that, in an instant, the whole Qian mansion fell into grief. The mournful cries caused all the onlookers to shed tears uncontrollably. Right at this moment, a gray-robed old madam with a head full of white hair shakily walked out from the depths of the Qian estate with the support of two young servant girls. Wei Zheng, Fang Xianling, and Du Ruhui were also standing in the yard with a serious face. The old man walked and said in a trembling voice, "Where is my grandson? Where is my son? Where is my grandson?" She asked everyone she saw, but who dared to tell her? The old man seemed to be about 80 years old and all her teeth had fallen out. At this moment, seeing Zhang Feng at the door, she seemed to see the last hope. She touched Zhang Feng's arm with trembling hands and asked with a strange face, "Young man, have you seen my grandson? They said that my grandson has left. Are they trying to deceive an old woman like me?" The old woman was still choosing a granddaughter-in-law for him yesterday, and he even came to see me yesterday. How could this be? The more she said, the louder the cries and whimpers of the crowd. Zhang Feng's body was also trembling uncontrollably. In that world, he also had a father, a mother, and a grandfather. He didn't even know if they had felt the same way when they saw him disappear back then. Zhang Feng's eyes were also wet. He hugged the old woman and wanted to say something, but he couldn't say anything. How could he dare to break this dream? "Grandma, I am your grandson. Look at me, I'm your grandson." In the end, Zhang Feng still shouted out. In an instant, the old woman heard that and touched Zhang Feng's cheeks, hair bun, arms, and even chest with trembling hands. Originally, Zhang Feng and Qian Wanli's figures were similar. At this time, the old woman's eyes were blurred. Although their voices were a little different, their figures were somewhat similar. The old woman touched Zhang Feng's cheeks, frowning from time to time and pleasantly surprised. Seeing this, the crowd couldn't help but cover their mouths and cry. The old woman touched Zhang Feng's cheek and said, "That's not right, grandson. Why do you have a beard? Did your brother mistreat you? Or is the work in the paper mill too heavy? Why didn't you dress up after coming home? What if some girl takes a fancy to you? With your appearance, why? Don't be like your father. I get angry every time I see him. Come. Granny will comb your hair. Let me tell you, yesterday, Granny personally picked a girl for you. That family. Mother. He is not your grandson, he is. Qian Tong broke down and burst into tears. The old woman glared at him and shielded Zhang Feng behind her, scolding, "Nonsense. When your grandson went to the academy, you locked him in his room. Don't think I don't know. Now what, you don't even recognize your own son." When Zhang Feng heard this, he couldn't help crying, hugging the old woman and saying, "Grandma, I am your grandson. From now on, I am your most beloved grandson. I will listen to everything you say, okay? When the old woman heard this, her eyes instantly narrowed into crescents and she rubbed Zhang Feng's cheek affectionately. My grandson is the best. Come, come, come. Do we have guests? Why are they all dressed so white? Come, 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 Tong. Or these may be my precious grandson's classmates. Why don't you quickly entertain them? Wait until I dress my grandson up nicely, and then… Grandma, grandson still has important things to do today. Sir Dean, the 4 great scholars, and the divine Dr. Old Son are all coming to our house. Can you go back first and wait for grandson to personally entertain them? When the old woman heard this, her face instantly changed. Ah, which Zhang Feng are you talking about, that brother of yours? There is also divine Dr. Sun. Divine Dr. Sun is a very good person. When grandma was young, she saw him with her own eyes. Right, the 4 great scholars. Grandma. Zhang Feng held back his tears and interrupted the old woman. Seeing this, Qian Tong's housekeeper hurriedly said, Old man, please go back to the inner room. If Old Son sees you, he will not be happy. The old woman heard this and hurriedly used her crutches to urge the maidservants to return, not forgetting to order more firecrackers as she walked. This was a time for them to hold their heads high and bring glory to their ancestors. However, at this time, this would only increase the sadness of everyone in Qian Mansion. After sending the old woman away, Zhang Feng came to Zhang Feng and respectfully said, Master Qian, it is Zhang Feng's fault for not taking care of Wanli. Please forgive me. This sentence completely shattered Qian Tong's last hope. At this time he looked at Zhang Feng and asked, How did he die? Long before Zhang Feng came, 3 people had come with secret orders from the Ministry of Works, the general meaning of which was to give him an idle job. But if he knew that this job was exchanged for with his son's life, he would rather not have it. He refused, because he still had a glimmer of hope. He hoped that in the end, all of this was a lie from his son. Although he had never seen Zhang Feng before, for him to appear here at this time, his identity was self-evident. This also meant that his son was really gone. In an instant, Qian Tong collapsed and burst into tears. After crying for a while, Qian Tong grabbed Zhang Feng's hand and asked, President Zhang, where is Jia Wanli? Where is he? When Zhang Feng heard this, he waved his hand and said, Let Brother Wanli's coffin return to the mansion. Chapter 1382. At this time, almost half of the people in Chang'an city came to the Qian Mansion. With the Qian Mansion as the center, the whole Chang'an city, from here to the East City, was densely packed with people. They didn't come to pay homage to Qian Wanli's death. They weren't that kind. They came to see how Zhang Feng would deal with it. Would Zhang Feng start a massacre for the sake of a student today? Among these people, there were groups of Jinwu guards in plain clothes, as well as the Imperial Guards and the Chang'an garrison. There were so many of them that it made people's hair stand on end. They only had one purpose. That was to find out the mastermind behind all this. For this matter, Li Shimin even sent out all the spies in Chang'an city at all costs. At this time, pairs of eagle-like eyes were coldly searching for something in the crowd. Even the places that people couldn't see, as long as there were suspicious places before, were basically cleaned up. Although the sun was weakly shining on Chang'an city at this time, the air was as cold as winter. The air was also filled with a thick smell of blood that could not be dispersed. In the courtyard, Qian Wanli's coffin finally fell to the ground. In front of his coffin, there were not 3 sacrificial animals, but 3 human heads. They were the murderer who killed Qian Wanli, the long-tongued woman, and the hooligan who jumped the most fiercely and acted the most ruthlessly. These 3 heads instantly made everyone's hair stand on end from head to toe. Everyone suddenly came to a realization. At this moment, behind the seemingly calm and tranquil scene, there seemed to be a turbulent wave brewing. After paying homage to Qian Wanli, Zhang Feng again said to Zhang Feng and Mrs. Qian, Master Qian, Mrs. Qian, I Zhang Feng have wronged Wanli. Although I have killed the murderer, today, I will personally go to the Bai, Gao, Mi and Tang family to seek justice for Brother Wanli. After that, Zhang Feng will personally come to ask for forgiveness. President Zhang. The moment Zhang Feng stood up and prepared to leave, Madame Qian grabbed Zhang Feng's hand and said hoarsely, My Qian family only has Wanli, this one and only child. Although I, as his mother, was soft-hearted and allowed him to go up the mountain, after that, Wanli, this child, is more excited and happy than he has been in the past 10 years. Furthermore, we have witnessed his growth. If it weren't for your approval, I'm afraid our Qian family wouldn't have been able to run Paper Blank's business. And every time he comes back, Wanli will always tell us about what happened on the mountain. Every time this happens, Wanli will be the happiest. Today, you have done enough. If Wanli were still alive, he would definitely not want to see the person he respected the most risk his life for him. Prince Zhang, I know you are a person who values friendship and righteousness, but doing this is not worth it. Today, people from the palace also came, and these families are already being investigated by the Ministry of Justice. Moreover, you have personally avenged Wanli. This, we are content. Qian Tong let out a long sigh. Prince Zhang, if Wanli were still alive, he would definitely not let you do this. Since he chose to do this, it was because he didn't want you to do anything stupid. I won't ask him how he died. I don't want to add to his sins, and I don't want his good brother to kill people for him. I am content with all of this. Now we just want to accompany Wanli. I hope Prince Zhang can help us. We can't afford to be tossed around anymore. We just want to live a peaceful life. Qian Tong was able to open a pawn shop in Chang'an city for so many years, so he was already familiar with many things. At this time, how could he not see that this wasn't a simple matter? Behind this matter, there must be a shocking conspiracy. Everything that happened in Chang'an city today he naturally knew. In addition, the people from the palace just now made him understand even more. If he got involved again, he wouldn't even know how he died. Now he even lost his son, so he didn't want to be tossed around anymore. Losing his son was like losing all hope. What was the point of everything he had done in the past? Even if he was given a high position at this time, what use would it be? Although he was extremely strict with Qian Wanli, all of this was for the good of Qian Wanli. But now? If back then he hardened his heart and didn't let Wanli go to White Deer College, perhaps today, even if his son still hated him, he could still be alive. But now? What was left of him, Qian Tong? Zhang Feng naturally understood the meaning of the two's words, but he didn't say anything. Most importantly, what could he say? Taking a deep breath, Zhang Feng said loudly, "Everyone in White Deer College kneel." Kneel. But just as Zhang Feng was about to kneel down, Qian Tong grabbed him tightly, refusing to let him kneel even if he had to die. "President Zhang, you are Wanli's teacher and the dean of the academy, you can't kneel. Moreover, Wanli can't accept it." When Zhang Feng heard this, he opened his mouth but didn't say anything. He could only bow to Qian Wanli's coffin, then to Mrs. Qian and Qian Tong. He waved his hand and said, "Tainyo, Gao can follow this dean to work." Chapter 1383. The moment Zhang Feng turned around, the grief and indignation on his face instantly turned into anger. He strode away without even taking off his mourning clothes. Wei Zheng, Fang Xianling, and Du Ruhui sighed when they saw this. They hurriedly followed Zhang Feng and chased after him. Their purpose for coming here was to guard against Zhang Feng. If Zhang Feng went crazy, they would stop him immediately. But things were just as the emperor thought. He really wanted to kill someone. "Fengzi, wait!" Wei Zheng shouted as he lifted his robe. But Zhang Feng still ignored the two of them and continued to walk towards the Gao residence. Wei Shiyu and Fang Yai were the ones leading the way. Zhang Feng was not a reckless man. On the contrary, he was not reckless. Today, he knew that the pair of big hands would definitely be watching in the dark. Today's incident was just the beginning. He knew that the pair of hands could not wait any longer and wanted to make a move. If he really retreated today, then everything he did in the future would definitely fall into a passive position. In fact, things like today would only continue endlessly. Today, what he wanted to do was to intimidate. Only by scaring these people out of their wits would they stop. Or else, these people would definitely not let this matter rest. And there was another reason why he did this. That was to give everyone a sense of security. No one could bully the people who entered White Deer College. If anyone dared to bully them, Zhang Feng would make them wish they were dead. Only such a strong sense of security and dominance would make those who wanted to cause trouble realize the reality. Previously, Zhang Feng had been too kind. Everyone mistakenly thought that he was timid and afraid of trouble. That was why today's outcome was like this. In the end, the heir of the merchant family whom he valued the most had died in vain. What if the one who died today was not Qianwanli, but Li Gan, Chen Tiniu, or one of the others? What would happen to him? If he let go today, what would happen to Zhang Yuyao, Jingshu, and Zhang Yuyao's family? And what would happen to you? How would the world view Zhang Feng? Therefore, Zhang Feng paid special attention today. To protect one's family, kindness, compassion, and generosity were necessary. However, these had to be built on a foundation. He had thought it was too simple. He thought that this was like the modern world, where everyone was bound by strict laws, but he forgot that this was the Tang dynasty. This was in the Tang dynasty, where feudal superstition was the most serious, and where the slavery system was the most serious. This led to today's tragedy. Even though he wasn't an unpardonable villain, but in order to protect the people he wanted to protect, he, Zhang Feng, would transform into that villain today. He was an evil man who made all those who dared to plot against him tremble in fear. It was also from this moment on that Zhang Feng transformed. At this moment, Wei Zheng, Fang Xianling, and Du Ruhui saw that Zhang Feng was ignoring them and hurriedly shouted, "Zhang Feng! Stop right there, old man! Do you know what you're doing right now? Fengzi, did you hear that?" Zhang Feng naturally heard their words. Seeing the three of them acting like this, Li Chengqian and Du Go couldn't hold back anymore. "Fengzi, why don't we listen to what they have to say?" "Fengzi!" Zhang Feng sighed slightly and stopped in his tracks. When Wei Zheng and the others saw this, they hurriedly ran forward and grabbed Zhang Feng's hand, pulling him behind them. Wei Zheng asked with a serious expression, "Fengzi, the emperor has already intervened in this matter. Do you know what this means?" "How could Zhang Feng not know?" he said. "The emperor just doesn't want me to make a move in Chang'an city, right?" Wei Zheng nodded and said, "Since you already know, why are you still so reckless? Do you know how many people are watching in the dark today? In the 2 hours that we were in the Qian mansion, we heard that the Imperial Guard spies killed at least 100 people and captured more than 300 people. These people are all from unknown forces. Think about it, so many people have been captured. How many people have not been captured?" "Fengzi, don't be so obsessed. It's not good for you." Zhang Feng nodded and took out the Mitsubishi bayonet from his arms. He said, "You're all right. But have you ever thought that the hands hidden in the dark also think the same? Today is just a test. If I, Zhang Feng, shrink back today, what will I do in the future? If I encounter today's situation again, will I still choose to back down? After the first test, there will definitely be a second and third time in the future. Have you ever thought about how many brothers I, Zhang Feng, have? How many students I, White Deer College, have? If this continues, how will the world view me, Zhang Feng? How will they view my White Deer College? Are they saying that I, Zhang Feng, don't even have the ability to protect my own students? Are they saying that I, Zhang Feng, don't even have the right to protect my brother's women? Do you really want to see this kind of ending?" Wei Zheng and the others couldn't help but have a serious expression. They had already thought about this, and the emperor was also worried about this. But now that they saw Zhang Feng acting recklessly, wasn't this also a trap set by the mastermind? Chapter 1384. Qian Wanli's death. It made Zhang Feng think of a lot of things. At first, Zhang Feng really didn't think so much. But as soon as he arrived in Chang'an city, Zhang Feng knew that he was thinking too simply. Although it seemed that the emperor ordered the arrest today to protect him, wasn't this what the mastermind wanted to see? They were waiting to see how Zhang Feng would end up. Once he flinched, it would only bring him endless trouble in the future. It would be a seed of disappointment for all those who were optimistic about him. The seed of disappointment was the most terrible. When you chose to flinch for the first time, if you chose him, then he would imprint this seed in everyone's mind. No matter what you did in the future, in the eyes of others, you were choosing to flinch. This seed was what Zhang Feng didn't want to see the most, but it was what the mastermind wanted to see the most. Someone was forcing him to make a choice behind his back. How could Wei Zheng and the other two not think of this? At this time, when they heard Zhang Feng's question, they didn't know what to say. After all, this choice also depended on Zhang Feng's choice. But they really didn't want to see Zhang Feng kill with their own eyes. Wei Zheng patted Zhang Feng's shoulder and said with some sincerity, "We'll pretend that we didn't see this. You can handle everything by yourself. Even if you poke a hole in Chang'an city, Laoli said that he will help you deal with it." Okay. Zhang Feng nodded and then hurried to the Gao family. Wei Zheng and the others hurriedly stopped Li Chengqian and said, "Remember, your father said that no matter what happens, you must protect Zhang Feng and yourself. Now don't let Fengzi go to the Tang family. Remember." The Gao family. The Gao family was also a famous family. But it was not in this era. At its most glorious time, almost half of the land in the entire Guangzhou region belonged to the Gao family. But that was the past. The current Gao family was just a country gentleman. However, he was still more well-off than the average large clan. After all, he still had a noble title in the imperial court, and some of his clansmen who worked in the imperial court. This ensured that the Gao family could continue to survive in Guangzhou. But that was only enough for them to survive. Just like the Bai clan, the Mi clan, and the Tang clan, their focus was all on this land. In Chang'an, he was considered a local tycoon. A few days ago, they had learned that there was something on the mountain that could double the amount of food. In addition, they also learned that Zhang Feng was a kind and easy person to talk to. Thus, they had been thinking about this. After all, the Imperial College and Hongwenguan had benefited from it first, so they couldn't help but harbor evil intentions. But who would have thought that the means they were originally proud of would be taken advantage of today? If they had known that Zhang Feng was the master of scheming and manipulating public opinion, they would never have done this. But everything was just an if. Early this morning, all the clansmen of the Gao family returned to their clan in high spirits, waiting for their share of the phosphate fertilizer. But what awaited them were the people from the Ministry of Justice and the Imperial Guards. At this moment, in the Gao residence, everyone was kneeling neatly in the courtyard. Around their necks hung a large, ice-cold blade. Their eyes were filled with fear and vexation. All of the clan's belongings were carefully taken away by the Imperial Guards. Not a single brick or tile was spared. Everything was moved out of the mansion. In the Gao family, except for a few high-ranking people, all the servants and their family members were taken away by the Ministry of Justice. No one knew what fate awaited them. But this was no longer important. What was important was that as the remaining people watched the last bit of their belongings slowly disappear, their hearts began to tighten. The emperor was furious. Their belongings were confiscated, and everyone was sent to the Ministry of Justice's prison. These were all small matters, but why were they not taken away? Could it be that they wanted to kill them? They all knew that things were not that simple. Most importantly, they all knew what was going on. After all, they were the ones who personally mobilized and came up with the plan. But the more it was so, the more terrified they felt. At this moment, after the last bit of their belongings were confiscated, an official from the Ministry of Justice slowly walked forward and sat in front of the Gao family head and the other related personnel. He asked, "Tell me what happened today. Do you want to talk about it here or in the Ministry of Justice's prison?" "There's no need." At this moment, Zhang Feng walked in with Li Chengqian and the others. In Li Chengqian's hands, he personally held the imperial edict that Li Xiaogong had just announced in the market. And when he saw the imperial edict, the eyes of the Ministry of Justice instantly widened. Those who were about to step forward to stop Zhang Feng, and the others also fell to their knees in an instant. And what shocked the Ministry of Justice even more was that, behind this young man, the crown prince and the heir to the duke had all appeared. This meant that the person leading them was Zhang Feng. Although not many people could recognize Li Chengqian, there were at least 3 of them. At this moment, Zhang Feng looked at the crowd and said, "The Emperor's imperial edict has already stated that I will handle this matter. You all can leave now." The Ministry of Justice's people wanted to say something, but the Ministry of Justice official sitting in front of the Gao family had immediately smiled and said, "Then I will leave now." Chapter 1385. There were only 7 people left in the Gao family. Apart from the head of the family who didn't look like he was in his 40s, the rest were between 50 and 80 years old. Seeing that the people from the Ministry of Justice had left, they cautiously raised their heads. However, their expressions changed the moment they saw Zhang Feng. His white linen clothes were extremely eye-catching. They didn't know what happened on Shao Mountain today, but since the people from the Ministry of Justice were here, it meant that the plan had failed. They never expected that these people would come in mourning clothes. What was the meaning of this? This was especially true for the Gao family head. He had thought about what he would have to face if he failed. However, when he saw Zhang Feng and the others in white, he knew that things were going to get serious. Who could come with the Emperor's imperial edict? Zhang Feng sat opposite them and looked at them. He played with the Mitsubishi Army knife in his hand and said, "Tell me, who is the mastermind behind this?" The head of the Gao family saw that Zhang Feng's tone was very calm, so he mustered up his courage and asked, "May I know who this young master is?" Zhang Feng. Hearing this, the head of the Gao family and the higher-ups of the Gao family were instantly shocked. The mastermind came personally. It seemed that, seeing this, the head of the Gao family put away the smile on his face and said, "It's the original president Zhang Feng. Since you already know about this, then kill us if you want. We have nothing to say." "Alright." Zhang Feng didn't hesitate at all. He waved his hand. Gao Qian immediately attacked. He took the Modeo from the Imperial Guard and cleanly cut off the head of the person next to the head of the Gao family. In an instant as the head fell, a mist of blood gushed out like rain. The head of the Gao family was so frightened that his face changed drastically. "Zhang Feng, what are you trying to do? We were wrong in this matter, but His Majesty also knows about this matter, and has already handed it over to the Ministry of Justice to investigate. You dare to kill people in broad daylight? Do you have any respect for the law? This is an imperial edict. Do you want to see it for yourself? His Majesty said that this matter is for me to handle. All the power of life and death is temporarily in my hands. I, Zhang Fengyu, am not an unreasonable person. Your people indiscriminately killed my brothers and injured tens of my people in Ji Mountain Square, and my, Zhang Fengyu's people. You should settle this account by yourself before deciding whether this guy should be killed or not." While speaking, Li Chengqian opened the imperial edict in his hand and placed it in front of Patriarch Gao and the others. "Take a good look, this is the Emperor's imperial edict. If you tell me the truth about the mastermind behind this, perhaps your Gao clan won't be wiped out today. If you dare to lie, he will be your example." This was also the first time Li Chengqian had seen someone killed with his own eyes. At this moment, his face was frighteningly pale. At this moment, seeing that Zhang Feng seemed to really want to kill someone to establish his prestige, he hurriedly said. The remaining people of the Gao clan were also instantly terrified. Patriarch Gao's forehead was dripping with bean-like cold sweat. Looking at Zhang Feng's calm eyes, he said, "Prince Zhang, all of this is the Tang clan." "Yes, it's the Tang clan. 3 days ago, after Kong Yingda came back from Ji Mountain, he took the phosphate fertilizer you made and spread it everywhere, saying that it was poisonous and would kill people if they ate it. Then, Dr. Sun Simiao personally went down the mountain and confirmed that it was not poisonous and could really increase the food supply." Patriarch Gao was really scared. She explained everything clearly without missing a single word. She even excluded the Gao family from the story. But no one was a fool. Zhang Feng was even less of a fool. At this time after he finished, Zhang Feng asked, "So your Gao clan was also forced by the Tang clan?" Yes. All of this was forced by them. Otherwise, how could we have the guts to do such a despicable thing? Moreover, the Tang family also said that if we were to participate, we only need to stand behind them. When the time comes, they will definitely share the phosphate fertilizer with us. But if we didn't agree, they would join forces with the Mi clan and the Bai clan to destroy our Gao clan. And they also said that it was all ordered by Kong Yingda, so we..." Hearing this, Zhang Feng stared into Patriarch Gao's eyes and said, "But why did I hear that all of this was led by the Gao clan and the Tang clan? And do you think that I, Zhang Feng, don't know anything? Your Gao clan has always been related to the Zheng clan in Xinjiang, and has always been the Zheng clan's pawn. This time, is the Zheng clan behind this matter? Hearing this, Patriarch Gao's face changed instantly. He hurriedly knelt on the ground and said, Prince Zhang, all of this was really done by the Tang clan. And they have the Wang clan behind them. The Wang clan has a grudge with Prince Zhang before, and this time, the Wang clan personally came with the Tang clan. That's why I foolishly agreed to this matter. Young master, please investigate this matter thoroughly. At this moment, all the dignity and arrogance that he usually had were all bullshit. In a matter of life and death, Patriarch Gao still chose to live an ignoble life. And he was also secretly shocked. How did Zhang Feng know all of this? After all, the relationship between the Gao clan and the Zheng clan in Xinjiang was basically unknown. They had always been in contact with each other through letters, and if there was nothing serious, they would not contact each other. Recently, he was sure that he had not contacted the Zheng clan. Such a secretive matter, even the people at the bottom of the Gao clan did not know. So how did Zhang Feng know? Seeing this, Zhang Feng sighed. Stubborn. Tainyo, I'll let you interrogate them. This house, if you want it, you can keep it. If you don't want it, burn it and let it be buried with Brother Wanli. Chapter 1386. Zhang Feng didn't know any of this. Even in the old and new Tang dynasty books, there were very few records of these four families. He had unintentionally read a novel about the Tang dynasty written by a lousy author. That was why he took it out to test this person out of curiosity. But he didn't expect it to be true. Was the Gao family really a pawn of the Zheng family in Xinjiang? Then could it be that the Bai and Mi families were related to these noble families? Now he had confirmed too. The Gao family seemed to be in the dark. As for the Tang family, they were the biggest suspects. He mentioned the Wang clan. Moreover, the Wang family's people had also come with the Tang family. The Tang family wasn't simple. In history, they had been in Chang'an, and since the Qin dynasty. It wasn't until the Wei, Jin, and northern and southern dynasties that the Tang family started to decline. When Yang Jian came to power, the Tang family had no chance of recovery. Until now. It seemed that the Tang family wasn't simple. Li Chengqian saw that Zhang Feng was silent and couldn't help but ask, Fengzi, do you think this incident was really done by the Wang clan's people? If that's the case, the mastermind is also the Wang clan's people? Zhang Feng shook his head and looked tiredly at the worried and fearful people in front of him. He said, It's a little impossible. The Wang clan alone can't do this. Now, I suspect that this incident wasn't done by the Wang clan at all. On the contrary, the Wang clan's people were used by others. What? Li Chengqian couldn't help but be shocked. He thought for a while and said, Fengzi, how is that possible? The Wang clan has been against us since Lantian. And the iron mine was broken by the Wang clan. Isn't that right? Now you're saying that it wasn't done by him? At this moment, Shiva, Wei Shuyu Du Go, and the others couldn't help but look at Zhang Feng. Ma Zhou, Hao Chujun, and the others also revealed confused and curious expressions. Although they knew a little about some things, they didn't know much after all. In addition, they didn't understand the various relationships between these big clans, which made them even more confused. Zhang Feng nodded. They used too much force. Think about it. If even we can think of this, then do you think that the people of the Wang clan are all fools? No one who can become a member of a big clan is a fool. On the contrary, these large clans have always prioritized their own interests. It's because of this that they don't dare to stand up against us easily. After all, they haven't swallowed us whole. So, if you were the head of the Wang clan, would you be so impatient to step out? In an instant, Li Chengqian understood everything. Ma Zhou, Hao Chujun, Guo Shouyi, and the others were puzzled and had no idea what he was talking about. How could these large clans be something that they could look up to normally? However, at this moment, from the conversation between Zhang Feng and Li Gan, they understood some things. Moreover, they were even more shocked by Zhang Feng's current understanding. In the subconscious mind of an ordinary person, they would be impulsive. In a fit of rage, one would often be unusually impulsive. However, Zhang Feng was different. He was actually able to hide everything under this appearance of rage. How could they not be impressed? As they spoke, the group arrived outside the Mi clan's residence. At this moment, the people of the Ministry of Justice seemed to have known that Zhang Feng was coming. Other than the head of the Mi clan and the important members, all the treasures and people were taken away. Only a few guards were left. When these guards saw Zhang Feng and the others arrive, they hurriedly handed over their belongings and slipped away. This time, Zhang Feng only spent the time of a meal to get something useful out of the Mi clan. That was the Lanling Shao clan behind the Mi clan. People from Shandong. How could they have dealings with the Mi clan? This caused Zhang Feng to become even more perplexed. As usual, he left the people to continue. This time on the way, Zhang Feng did not say a word. He hurriedly led the group into the Bai clan's residence. The Bai clan practiced medicine for generations. It was a well-known family of physicians. In the Sui dynasty, Yang Guang's era was also his most glorious era. However, when he was treating Yang Guang's beloved concubine, he accidentally touched the arm of the imperial concubine and was almost exterminated by Yang Guang. These descendants of the Mi family were also the scattered members of the Mi family. Finally, after the founding of the Tang dynasty, they were able to recover some of their ancestral properties. However, they could no longer take back the things they had bought from the merchants. At that time, the land was the most worthless thing in the world. When Zhang Feng entered the Mi clan's residence, of the Mi clan, only an old lady was left. She was sitting at the entrance of the residence, seemingly waiting for Zhang Feng's arrival. This made Zhang Feng a little surprised. Behind the old lady, the remaining members of the Mi clan were lying on the ground. Their faces were purplish-black. It was obvious that they had committed suicide by taking poison. Seeing Zhang Feng's arrival, the old lady smiled faintly and said, "Prince Zhang, you're here." Zhang Feng did not beat around the bush and asked directly, "Tell me, who is the mastermind behind you?" Chapter 1387. The woman from the Mi clan faintly smiled and said, "Listen to this old woman's nagging first. When I'm done, you'll know everything about my Mi clan." The Mi family was originally a prominent family. Prince Zhang should have heard about this from the Bai family and the Gao family before coming here, right? This old woman knew quite a lot. Zhang Feng couldn't help but understand why everyone behind her had died. She was afraid that her clansmen would suffer the pain of being imprisoned. Besides, this was the prison of the Ministry of Justice. Moreover, this matter had alarmed the emperor. How could they come out after entering? Moreover, the old woman also knew about the Qian family. Since she came from the Qian family, she must have passed by these places. Since she could come here, it meant that Zhang Feng knew everything he could. There was no point in struggling at this point. The old woman continued, "But in the Sui dynasty, my ancestor touched the arm of the imperial concubine and was exterminated. We were only able to return to our ancestral home from the bitter cold when the retired emperor ascended the throne and pardoned the world. But the glory of the past was long gone. So the Mi family had no choice but to find a big tree. Prince Zhang, do you know why the Mi family can continue to exist in Chang'an? Usually, when people who are exiled come back, they may not be able to buy these properties even if they have money, let alone these properties." Zhang Feng was not in the mood to guess. However, at this moment there was a chance that he could catch the mastermind behind the scenes. Zhang Feng could only listen to her patiently. "Tell me." The old woman chuckled and said, "Back in Liangzhou, which was also the border of the Tang dynasty, the Mi family inadvertently saved a businessman. This businessman lived in Zhaojun." At this point, the old woman stopped talking. Li Chengqian was shocked and said, "You mean the Li family of Zhaojun?" The old woman nodded. "Yes. If it weren't for them, we wouldn't have any hope of returning to Chang'an. But it's also because of this that we're connected to Zhaojun. But this matter really has nothing to do with us. My Mi family didn't want to get involved with anyone or any force. After all, there's a precedent. But when my Mi family came back, we owed a lot of favors, and this Tang family took the biggest share. So this time, it's also the people of the Tang family who asked us to come forward with the favor." Zhang Feng didn't know how much of this was true and how much was false. But since things had come to this point, all the spearheads pointed to the Tang family and the Wang clan. Zhang Feng no longer hesitated and got up to leave. But the old lady asked in surprise, "Prince Zhang, this is..." Zhang Feng didn't say anything. Instead, he hurried out. His intuition was right. Moreover, she was just an old woman. What did he have to fear? As soon as he went out, Li Chengqian hurriedly grabbed Zhang Feng. "Fengzi, do you know who that old woman is?" "I don't know, and I don't want to know now. I just want to go to the Tang family." Li Chengqian grabbed Zhang Feng and said solemnly, "Do you know the name of Granny Miji?" Zhang Feng was stunned for a moment. He had heard of Granny Miji and Granny Miji, but what did they have to do with this old woman? Seeing this, Li Chengqian said, "The Mi family was originally close to becoming the 9th clan, but later on, they offended Yang Guang, which led to this. But do you really think what she said was true? The Li family only agreed to help them because I accidentally saved a Li family member?" Zhang Feng frowned slightly. "Are you saying that the old woman is lying?" Li Chengqian nodded. However, Wei Shiyu continued, "She is Granny Miji. When they were in Liangzhou, the Mi family was gathering their connections and preparing to return to Chang'an. They also wanted to restore their former glory. The mastermind behind all this was Granny Miji. Don't underestimate this old woman. She almost alerted the emperor." During the Wei River Alliance, Granny Miji brought hundreds of kilograms of poison and offered it to the emperor. She was prepared to poison the Turks. However, the emperor didn't have the heart to do so, so he didn't choose such a vicious plan. At the same time, the emperor ordered people to suppress the Mi family after the incident. Think about it. A family that can produce such a huge amount of poison. How can the emperor not be afraid? How can the history of Zhao Jun not be afraid? That was also why the Li family of Zhao County chose to help him. However, the price was that all the Mi family's properties in Liangzhou would belong to the Li family of Zhao County. Do you know what the Li family of Zhao County found when they took over? Half of the entire Liangzhou basically belonged to the Mi family. Zhang Feng couldn't help but be secretly shocked. He didn't expect that such a benevolent old woman would be so ruthless. At this moment, he finally understood why Li Chengqian and the others' expressions changed when Granny Miji was mentioned. However, what did this have to do with him? After hearing this, Zhang Feng only uttered an "oh," and then headed for the Tang family again. He was blocked by Li Chengqian again. "Fengzi, although she is just an old woman, think about it. How terrifying is someone who can even abandon her own family at a critical moment? Everything today is caused by you. If you don't completely destroy her hope today, in the future..." Zhang Feng was also annoyed. He waved his hand and said, "If you want to go, go. I'll leave this matter to you. The rest of you, quickly follow me to the Tang family." Chapter 1388. The Tang family. It was a family with the same name as the Tang dynasty. It was impossible to say that he had nothing to do with the royal family. In the past, Tang Jian had been very high profile, and he had always been proud of this. Therefore, in Chang'an City, most people did not dare to offend him. But this was also the reason why the Tang family was so arrogant. The land of Shirley Slope and the land under Mount Longsho all belonged to the Tang family. What kind of place was Mount Longsho? It was the imperial plantation. It was the place of the emperor. This gave the Tang family another reason to be arrogant. Usually, as long as it was not a big deal, even the county government would not want to have anything to do with the Tang family. They were afraid that the Tang family would settle accounts with them in the future. But today, the Tang family, who used to be so arrogant and domineering, had set off a huge wave in Chang'an City. The emperor had personally issued a decree to confiscate all the Tang family's belongings and put all the members of the Tang family in jail. At first, no one knew what was going on. Moreover, the people from the Tang family had a group of hired thugs and even injured dozens of bailiffs. In the end, when the imperial guards and the Ministry of Justice appeared, the Tang family finally behaved themselves. But that was only obedience. They did not admit to their crimes. It was not until Zhang Feng led the funeral procession into Chang'an City that what happened in the marketplace of Shao Mountain caused an uproar among the people. The Tang family was so bold that they dared to send a group of hooligans and gossips from Chang'an and city and the surrounding areas to make trouble for White Deer College. Where was White Deer College? It was a sacred institution that was appointed by the emperor to be on the same level as the Imperial College. Moreover, it was founded by Zhang Feng, the youngest Confucian scholar in the Tang dynasty and history. Zhang Feng's status in the hearts of the people of Chang'an city was no different from that of a god. But the Tang family actually dared to attack Zhang Feng? Moreover, he had violently forced Zhang Feng to hand over the phosphate fertilizer formula in his hands. He had even beaten to death the son of Chang'an's manager Qian, who was also the direct disciple of Dean Zhang Feng. In an instant, everyone in Chang'an city was furious. What is this? They were simply a bunch of bandits. As for the people from the Ministry of Justice, they grew even more furious. With a single order, they joined forces with the common people who had been oppressed by the Tang family, and smashed the Tang family's estate into smithereens. Even the Tang family's businesses in Chang'an were completely destroyed by the angry common people. Faced with so many commoners and officials from the Ministry of Justice, the people from the Tang family were still unwilling to leave the matter at that. They continued to evade the important matters and dwell on the trivial matters, as they questioned the Ministry of Justice on how to punish the commoners. Meanwhile, at the entrance of the Tang family's residence, the patriarch of the Qian family, Tang Hao, sat boldly at the entrance of the residence, drinking tea while looking at the angry commoners. He said to the officials from the Ministry of Justice, "Old man has said that you can enter the Tang family's residence today, but if you don't hand over this group of unruly commoners to the old man will definitely accuse the Ministry of Justice of corruption and conniving with the murderer." The person who came to the Tang family's residence this time was the second in command of the Ministry of Justice, Fenglong. He was well aware of these matters, as well as the relationship between the emperor and Zhang Feng, coupled with what had happened in Shao Mountain, as well as the high-profile style of the Tang family. Fenglong could not help but feel extremely angry. "Tang Hao, do you know that everything that the Tang family has done on Shao Mountain today has already infuriated the emperor? We will act according to the law. If you continue to be obsessed and obstruct us, it won't be us who will come later. It will be the imperial guards, the emperor's personal guards. Do you want to be executed by the emperor on the spot, or plead guilty?" "Plead guilty?" Tang Hao laughed. "The Tang family has always been above board. How can we plead guilty just because you say so? You said that you were acting according to the imperial edict. Fine, I won't make things difficult for you. First, tell me, how are you going to deal with these rioters? If you deal with these rioters first, we'll talk about our business." Fenglong gritted his teeth and said, "The people of the Chang and local government will investigate these people." "Ai ha ha." Tang Hao laughed out loud. "So you're saying that the Tang family is so easy to bully? First, you came to our door to falsely accuse the Tang family of causing trouble on Shao Mountain. Can you produce evidence? If you can, that old man will definitely plead guilty. Even if the emperor comes in person today, if you don't have evidence, I, Tang Hao, will definitely not allow you to frame me unjustly. Moreover, the Tang family is a contributor to the founding of the country. Is this how you treat a contributor to the founding of the country?" Fenglong was so angry that his face turned red and he could not say anything. At this moment, Niu Jinda and Yu Qigong's voices slowly appeared at the gate of the Tang family's residence. "Tang Hao, your mouth is still as foul as before." Hearing that, in an instant, Fenglong hurriedly bowed to them. However, he was stopped by Yu Qigong and Niu Jinda's attire. Tang Hao looked at the two of them in surprise. He had a feeling of déjà vu, but he could not tell if he knew them or not. At this moment, Yu Qigong said coldly, "Your Tang family's young master is now in the military camp and has confessed everything. Why are you still standing here? Do you really want to see your Tang family go to ruin? And let me tell you, those people you found have all confessed. I advise you to plead guilty quickly." At this moment, Niu Jijie and General Qing Yaojin are personally escorting the interrogation results and the situation here back to the palace. If you persist in going about things the wrong way, do you know the consequences? Tang Hao got up in horror and looked at the two of them in horror. "Who are you? Why do you know so much? Chapter 1389. Tang Hao was the head of the Tang family. When the people from the Ministry of Justice arrived, he had thought of many things. But he never expected that his unfilial son would confess everything. They had agreed that no matter what happened, as long as the people on the mountain refused to give in, he would be able to settle the matter even if the emperor himself came. After all, he had someone in court. Plus, the Wang family had promised him. But now? That unfilial son had confessed? How was that possible? Yu Qigong didn't expect it either. The young master of the Tang family actually confessed as soon as he saw the pool of dung in the military prison that had been there for who knew how many years. He thought that the brat was so arrogant that he would have to go through torture before he would confess. So Yu Qigong rushed down as fast as he could. His goal was to make Tang Hao confess before Zhang Feng arrived at the Tang residence. Otherwise, once Zhang Feng arrived, there would be no turning back. Before he arrived, the spy had already informed him of Zhang Feng's every move. At this moment, Zhang Feng's eyes were bloodshot. On the one hand, he wanted to avenge Qian Wanli, but on the other hand, he wanted to establish his authority. This brat urgently needed to establish his authority, so that White Deer College's prestige could rise to another level. It was understandable why Zhang Feng would be so impulsive. Moreover, if Zhang Feng really dared to kill the Tang family, the Wang family would be furious. This was also the reason why the emperor was so concerned about this matter. Tang Hao was also one of Huang's horses. When he saw that Yu Qigong didn't say anything, he panicked even more. The assistant minister of the Ministry of Justice, Feng Ang, broke out in cold sweat. Now that Yu Qigong was here, things would be difficult. Moreover, Yu Qigong was in disguise. Did that mean that Zhang Feng was coming? When he thought of this, Feng Ang hurriedly stepped forward to block Yu Qigong's path. Lord Yu, why have you come? Yu Qigong pushed Feng Ang to the side and looked at Tang Hao. You don't need to know who Lao Tzu is. When you don't die tonight, you will know who Lao Tzu is. But when that time comes, you won't be able to die even if you want to. That's why I'm here. I'm here for the sake of your Tang family. I don't want your Tang family to be wiped out. Hee. Tang Hao smiled faintly. Then shouldn't old man thank you? Yu Qigong clenched his fists and stood in front of Tang Hao with his hands clasped behind his back. That won't be necessary. However, you only have one meal. If you miss this opportunity, I'm afraid your Tang family won't have another chance to speak. Speaking of which, President Zhang Zhangfeng has probably cleaned up the Mi family, right? Hearing this, Tang Hao's eyelids twitched. What did you say? Does Zhang Feng dare to kill someone? Does he dare to wipe out an entire family? This is Chang'an City, right under the emperor's nose. Does he dare to kill someone so brazenly? Feng Ang, as the assistant minister of the Ministry of Justice, why aren't you involved in this matter? Yu Qigong waved his hand. He can't do anything about it. Tang Hao's eyelids twitched. He hurriedly asked why. President Zhang Zhangfeng has His Majesty's imperial edict. His Majesty has already decreed that this is Zhang Feng's personal matter, and he should deal with it himself. Moreover, Mount Xiao is Lord Zhang's fief. Not only did you cause trouble at Mount Xiao, but you also killed a student from White Deer College in public. This student was President Zhang's personal disciple. Tang Hao, we're here because His Majesty doesn't want to cause any more bloodshed. So you better think this through. Moreover, old Yu is Zhang Feng's brother. He's the only one who can persuade Zhang Feng. Tang Hao, you better think this through. Once Prince Zhang comes, it'll be too late. Tang Hao was even more certain that these two were putting on an act. He smiled faintly. So, you're doing this for my own good? At this moment, he was even more certain of the Wang family's words. The closer they got to this point, the more they had to persevere. As long as they didn't relent, even if His Majesty came, he wouldn't be able to convict them. Moreover, would His Majesty personally speak up for a dead person? Yu Qigong's expression gradually turned cold. He stared coldly at Tang Hao and said, Lao Tzu, I'll ask you one last time. Are you going to confess or not? Or are you going to move aside? If you don't move aside, old man won't care about your life or death. For the sake of Lao Tzu's Tang Tang Fort, I'll ask you one more time. This is also His Majesty's intention. His Majesty has some friendship with Lao Tzu. Don't think that Lao Tzu doesn't know about this. To tell you the truth, I originally didn't want to get involved this time. However, Lord Zhongsun personally sent a secret order to Lao Tzu to protect the Tang family. If you don't confess, Lao Tzu will leave immediately. Old you really came at the right time. However, this old thing's intelligence is lacking. I think it's better for me to do it. At this moment, Zhang Feng's voice slowly rang out from behind everyone. The moment he heard this voice, Yu Qigong knew that he couldn't stop this even if he wanted to. The moment Zhang Feng's voice rang out, everyone immediately turned to look at the source of the voice. At the same time, they instinctively moved aside to make a path. Tang Hao also saw Zhang Feng and the others, who were dressed in mourning clothes. Zhang Feng ignored Tang Hao. Instead, he patted Yu Qigong's shoulder and said, "Old Yu, what's the point of saying so much to this kind of person who has a problem with his intelligence?" As he spoke, Zhang Feng sighed and said, "This also shows that your intelligence is lacking." Chapter 1390. Reporting. Your Majesty, Prince Zhang Feng has already arrived at Tang Manor, in the imperial study. At this time, Xiao Gizi reported with a pale face. On the dragon throne, Li Yuan and Li Shimin looked at the secret memorials placed on the table. They looked at each other. Li Shimin lightly waved his hand. Only then did Xiao Gizi say, "Your Majesty, General Yuqi and Assistant Minister Feng still haven't executed Tang Hao." Hearing this, Li Yuan asked, "Then did Yu Qigong say anything about his Lao Tzu and Tang Hongbao?" "He did, but," Tang Hao said. Li Yuan slapped the table and said, "What did he say?" "He said, even if your Majesty personally came, it would be useless." Li Shimin's face was very gloomy. Did he really think that just because his ancestor had some relationship with me, he could disregard the law? Xiao Gizi, did you find anything unusual about Tang Manor recently? Xiao Gizi hurriedly took out a gilded booklet from his bosom and handed it to Li Shimin, saying, "This is all of the Tang family's abnormal behavior in the past month that the Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Rights, and Ministry of Works have gathered today." While speaking, Xiao Gizi said again, "Just now news came from the military camp, saying that Tang Jingtian has been executed. In the past month, the Tang family privately sold large amounts of firearms to the Turks with the Tang family's descendants from the Ministry of Works. Moreover, most of the Tang family's properties in Longyu Road have been transferred. However, as to where exactly they have been transferred, this is unknown." Li Shimin's eyes narrowed slightly. "This we know. In the past month in Chang'an, there hasn't been the slightest bit of news about the arrival of a large amount of family property. Then, Father Emperor, do you know if this Tang family has any other properties in other places?" "Li Tang. Why was it called Tang and not Li?" There was still a lot of explanation for this. At the time when Taiyuan started the war, this title of the country was controversial. It was only until Li Yuan proclaimed himself emperor that it was decided to use the name Tang. However, what this had to do with the Tang family, Li Shimin really didn't know. At that time, the Tang family had the closest relationship with the Li family. It could also be considered a family supported by Li Yuan who wanted to contend against those large families. But it seemed that even after so many years, the Tang family could only be considered a local second-rate power. If it weren't for the huge incident today, Li Shimin would have almost forgotten about the Tang family. Moreover, he had just received news from Li Chengqian that the Gao, Bai and Mi clans were all related to those large clans. What about the Tang clan? He actually had dealings with the Wang clan. It was no wonder that even when he had been cracking down on the encroachment of these great clans and forces on Chang'an, these forces were still able to infiltrate without a sound. He had originally thought that these local forces of Guanzhong were truly united, and these families had always kept a low profile, so he had never thought of this matter. If it wasn't for today, he really wouldn't have known that the four great clans had actually caused so many things in silence. Li Yuan also did not expect that this tiny Tang family that could not be helped up would actually cause so many things under his eyelids. Today, after learning about the incident at Shao Mountain, he was also unusually angry. Seeing this, he said somewhat angrily, "Back then, when I established Liangzhou Prefecture, I had sent a secret order for their people to infiltrate other clans. However, this Tang Hongbao had not made any progress, so I did not take it seriously. After that, when I saw the results of the Tang family these years, I was bitterly disappointed and chose to give up on them. However, this Tang Hongbao really made a good move." Li Shimin instantly said in surprise. "In that case, the internal strife between Tubo and Tuyuhun has been unable to be pacified all this time because of the Tang family? At this time, Tang Hao has been holding on all this time because of this matter?" Although Li Shimin was only guessing, the more he thought about it, the more scared he felt. This Tang family usually did not show off and did not leak anything. This time, it did not seem to be a big wave. Originally, he wanted to protect the Tang family. After all, if he suppressed the local forces too much, it would make the people of Chang uneasy. However, now that Zhang Feng had caused such a ruckus, he investigated and really found many problems. This Tang family, they really did not stop in the past few years. Back then, when the retired emperor allowed them to develop in other clans, it seemed like he had opened a door for them. It was a door that allowed their ambitions to swell. Hearing this, Li Yuan nodded. "That's what I guess too. Otherwise, this matter would not make sense. A small phosphate fertilizer, if it was produced, would naturally benefit the people of the world. They would naturally obtain enough benefits, but they would also feel some fear towards those landowning clans. However, this is not the most serious matter. I feel that they seem to have other motives." Hearing this, Li Shimin instantly looked at Li Yuan, who was watching him, and said, "Father, do you mean that the Tang family wants to annex White Deer College?" Li Yuan nodded. However, he shook his head and said with a smile, "Who asked this kid not to show off and to have such a sloppy appearance? Last time, I guess that they saw some signs in the agreement between the people of Guanlong and Zhang Feng. In addition, Zhang Feng has always been carefree, so this time they are probing." Probing? Li Shimin was shocked and instantly understood. His expression suddenly turned cold. Zhang Feng is naturally easy to talk to and has a good temper. However, if you think that Zhang Feng is easy to deal with, hee. Thinking of this, Li Shimin's heart instantly calmed down. After exchanging glances with Li Yuan, he waved his hand and said, "Pass down the imperial edict. I will pretend that I don't know about this matter. Since Zhang Feng has the imperial edict, do as he wishes. In addition, tell those who are watching to retract their eyeballs. Otherwise, I don't mind gouging their eyeballs out." Chapter 1391. In the Crown Prince residence. Ho Junji should have left long ago. After all, his fief was in Luozhou, but because the Crown Prince had been ill and the Crown Princess had caught a cold while taking care of Li Chengxian, Ho Junji had found an excuse to stay. Until now. In the garden of the Crown Prince residence's eastern palace, a series of spies, like butterflies flitting through flowers, appeared beside him in an endless stream, and then hurriedly left again. Ho Junji's face gradually turned grave. At this moment, the Crown Princess, dressed in a pink robe embroidered with golden threads, calmly looked at Ho Junji. Only after the servants had left did she ask, "Lord Father, is the Crown Prince all right?" "The Crown Prince is fine, but after today's disturbance, the officials will probably change their view of the Crown Prince." The Crown Princess grimaced, the teacup in her hand trembling as she hastily asked, "What do you mean? Didn't you say that a student was killed in Shao Mountain Market? Was this Zhang Feng's personal matter? Why would the Crown Prince?" Ho Junji shook his head and stood up to look at the osmanthus trees blooming with orange flowers. "Although this is Zhang Feng's doing, don't forget that this academy is spread out in the name of the Crown Prince. Although everyone knows that this is a pretense, the Crown Prince can still be considered a student, and the Crown Prince truly did participate in today's matter. Thus, while the Crown Prince's prestige will rise a little, the landowning clans will definitely be wary of the Crown Prince." The Crown Princess's expression changed. Although she had never left the Eastern Palace, she placed great importance on these matters. Every day, an endless stream of people would come to visit, hoping to curry favor with the crown prince. Thus, there were some matters that she knew even better than the crown prince. Hearing this, she asked, "Lord Father, everything today was carried out by Zhang Feng with an imperial decree. What does it have to do with the crown prince? Moreover, the crown prince is also a student who listens to Zhang Feng's orders." "You're right, but these are all superficial things. Even if Zhang Feng massacred Chang'an city today, no one would care. What people care more about is how Zhang Feng will deal with the Tang family. Also, how should we deal with this phosphate fertilizer?" In other words, Zhang Feng's decision today will directly affect the crown prince and his future path. Once he makes a decision, he will basically be labeled by all the major forces in the future. The crown prince consort was slightly shocked. Although Zhang Feng and the crown prince called each other brothers, there was still the relationship between the monarch and the minister. It was inevitable that people who knew him would recognize him. Moreover, this matter was already clear in front of some of the senior officials in the imperial court. Everyone was just afraid of the emperor's orders. However, if Zhang Feng were to act rashly and wipe out the entire Tang family, then the power behind the Tang family would be extremely dissatisfied. Thus, the crown prince would also be affected. However, if Zhang Feng were to soften his heart and let the Tang family go, then the consequences would only be more unfavorable. The crown prince consort couldn't help but become nervous. But Ho Junji was an old fox, and he was in no rush. He began to leisurely admire the osmanthus flowers, as if they were some sort of extraordinary object. The crown prince consort asked in surprise, "Father doesn't seem to be worried at all? Did you already make a decision?" Ho Junji plucked a bouquet of osmanthus flowers and handed it to the crown prince consort. "At this time, His Imperial Majesty has decreed that we can only sit and wait for the result. It all depends on what Tubo and Tuyuhan think." "What? How could this matter have anything to do with Tubo and Tuyuhan?" The crown prince consort was alarmed. Ho Junji smiled. "Do you still remember the several thousand craftsmen that His Imperial Majesty sent to Tubo and Tuyuhan to deal with the drought and locust plague? In truth, these people are called craftsmen, but they are actually spies of my great Tang. But not even His Majesty knows of this. It was because of their infiltration that the Tang clan's foreign faction, which was on the verge of death, was revived. This is the Tang clan's trump card. But it seems like old Tang House plan is about to fail." The crown prince consort was even more confused. What's going on here? Could it be that His Imperial Majesty sent someone from the Tang clan? Ho Junji said nothing. Instead, he looked up at the setting sun and said, "If my guess is correct, His Imperial Majesty should have received a memorial by now, right?" At the same time, the Secretariat had also received an urgent memorial. The moment they received the memorial, they were alarmed and hastily sent someone to invite Feng Xianling back to the Secretariat. As soon as Feng Xianling entered the Secretariat, everyone in the Secretariat gathered outside his office. Feng Xianling frowned and asked, "What is the meaning of this?" "Master Feng, you should first take a look at this urgent memorial from the Longyu Circuit." Feng Xianling was shocked when he heard this. He hurriedly took the memorial from the man's hand and read it carefully. Feng Xuanling's face suddenly changed. He hastily shouted, "Quickly prepare a sedan chair. Old man wants to enter the palace to meet His Imperial Majesty." Something had happened to the emperor. In other words, the emperor wanted to protect the Tang family. After they left, Zhang Feng glanced around and saw that Fenglong from the Ministry of Justice was still standing to the side. He couldn't help but ask, "Lord Feng, you heard what they said just now. Then what about the matters here?" As he spoke, Zhang Feng glanced behind Fenglong. How could Fenglong not understand Zhang Feng's meaning? He gritted his teeth and said, "Prince Zhang, after all, this official still has some matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first. I hope Prince Zhang won't be impatient. We'll be back soon." As he spoke, Fenglong hurriedly led the people from the Ministry of Justice away. What a joke! The emperor's favorite, Xiao Gizi, had already spoken. At this time, Zhang Feng also spoke. It was obvious that he wanted to make a move. At this time, the emperor called the two of them away. It was clear that he didn't want to get involved in this matter. Then what was he doing here? If he didn't leave now, when would he leave? After everyone had left, the crowd's discussion grew even louder, and Tang Hao's gaze gradually turned cold. He didn't expect that they would leave at this time. What was the meaning of this? At this time, Zhang Feng called out to Cheng Chimo and the others, who were blushing with anger. Cheng Chimo was so angry that his beard blew and his eyes widened. Fengzi, that brat's mouth is too cheap. He actually dared to call you a motherless bastard. Wait for Lao Tzu to tear him apart alive. Who said that? Before Zhang Feng could speak, Gao Ken shouted angrily. This shout startled Cheng Chimo. He looked at the red-eyed Gao Ken with a trembling voice and swallowed with difficulty. He avoided Gao Ken's gaze and pointed at a thin-lipped middle-aged man from the Tang family. It's him. If you have the guts, go find him. Don't shout at me. Gao Ken heard this and clenched his fists. Zhang Feng didn't stop him. Instead, he looked at Cheng Chimo and said, Lao Li just sent a message. He said that he has something important to discuss. You guys should go and listen. Hearing this, Wei Shuyu and the others instantly noticed that Li Chengqian and Yu Qigong were gone. They hurriedly said, But if you leave, won't you be at a disadvantage? Zhang Feng pointed at old Ma and the others behind him and said, Don't tell me you think that old Ma and the others can't crush this group of ants. Go. Cheng Chimo and the others weren't willing to. However, Zhang Feng's face instantly turned cold and he shouted, Get lost! Hearing this, the few of them walked away, turning their heads back every few steps. After they left, Zhang Feng waved his hand and called old Ma and the others over. He asked, Are Jia Daren and the others here? Old master, we've been here for a long time. At this moment, Zhang Feng finally noticed that Jia Daren was holding a kitchen knife, and Zheng Tufu had been standing behind him for a long time. This gave Zhang Feng a big fright. No wonder he felt a chill down his spine. So that's what happened. Zhang Feng touched Tufu Zheng's bloody knife and said speechlessly, Don't point this thing at me. President Zhang, what do you mean by this? Do you really want to kill the entire Tang family in front of all the people of Chang'an? Chapter 1393. In an instant, all the onlookers were in an uproar. What did that mean? Did they slaughter the whole Tang family? And in front of all the people in Chang'an City? Could it be in an instant? All the onlookers were in an uproar. Damn it. It seems that the people of the Ministry of Justice were sent away just now. Could it be that Prince Zhang and President Zhang really want to kill people on the street? I think it's possible. President Zhang is kind-hearted, but what the Tang family did was really a bit too much. You didn't see the situation in Mount Shao today. The whole place is in chaos. You should know that group of hooligans, but they beat up everyone they saw in Mount Shao today. And anyone who dares to say a good word about President Zhang will be beaten up by them. What? That's outrageous. They are so arrogant. Are the runners sent to Mount Shao by the Chang and local government just for show? For show? You don't know. Where are the people of the local government? They were all kidnapped by them. Hiss. Terrifying? Are they so arrogant? Do you think you all know Qian Wanli, the son of Qian Tong, the manager of Hengtong Money House? Yes, I know. Didn't that guy do a paper business with Hengtong Money House? I heard that it was very popular and made a lot of money. But I know. Today, Qian Wanli is holding a funeral in his mansion. Now President Zhang is wearing mourning clothes in person. Is Qian Wanli gone? In an instant, all the people knew the cause and effect of the matter, and the people of the Tang family also heard the discussion. In an instant, some of the people of the Tang family panicked, and more of them wanted to leave. At this time, Tang Hao's face became a little gloomy. EFO raised his sleeve and said, Shut up, all of you. What does the death of Qian Tong's son have to do with old man? Didn't I transmigrate from Mount E some time ago, and someone died of poisoning because he was tinkering with that phosphate fertilizer? Is this also because of me? This matter wasn't done by that brat of yours. Zhang Feng interrupted Tang Hao. Instantly, Tang Hao's expression changed drastically. Before he spoke, Zhang Feng did not speak. At such a crucial moment, Zhang Feng interrupted him. What was the meaning of this? Instantly, all the citizens began to discuss again. Zhang Feng shouted, "Everyone! I'm sure everyone knows about the mask that has been circulating recently, right? That's right. That thing was indeed created by me. But do you know what it is used for? That thing is used to isolate poisonous things. Only when the poisonous things are broken down will the remaining things be non-poisonous and useful to the Zhuang family." Tang Hao laughed and said, "What a glib tongue. What's poisonous is poisonous. How can this thing be decomposed? Brat, if you want to impose a crime, just say it. Why do you have to do this?" Zhang Feng already knew that he would say this. He looked at Zhang Feng and asked coldly, "Zhang Feng, do you really want to commit murder on the street?" Zhang Feng spread his hands and said, "In comparison, I, Zhang Feng, am not interested in killing people. I'm just here for revenge." Chapter 1394. Tang Hao heard this. Tang Hao narrowed his eyes. "Revenge? Aren't you afraid of the authorities? Are you going to defy the law like this? How can someone like you be called a great scholar? How can you be the director of a hospital?" Zhang Feng ignored Tang Hao. He patted Gao Can on the shoulder and said, "Gao Can, who did Tai Nyo say was scolding me?" "It's him." Gao Can angrily pointed at the middle-aged man and roared. Zhang Feng nodded and said, "Then go." "How dare you? Zhang Feng, this is the Tang family. How can you kill people here? Guards, if anyone dares to take a step forward, kill them." Hearing this, Old Ma directly raised his arm and shouted, "Protect the director. If anyone dares to come close, kill them. Kill." In an instant, more than 60 people wearing white shirts with the words, "White Deer Security," embroidered on their chests stood in front of Zhang Feng, surrounding him behind them. How could these random guards compare to that aura? When the commoners saw this, they quickly retreated in shock. Gao Can was like an iron tower. Naturally, he was taller than ordinary people. At this time, the burly men of the Tang family were like strong lambs in front of Gao Kansas. How could they stop Gao Can? In addition, Gao Can had trained in the army for a month. At this time, although he was not good at weapons, he still gave people a very oppressive feeling even if he was barehanded. "Zhang Feng, you bastard! What do you want to do?" The middle-aged man and Tang Hao almost shouted in anger at the same time. However, Zhang Feng acted as if he didn't hear anything. He turned around and cupped his fists towards the people behind him. "Everyone, today Zhang Feng is here to seek justice for my brother, and also to take revenge. Moreover, I came here with the Emperor's imperial edict. However, the Tang family refused to cooperate, and even insulted me. That's fine, but just a moment ago, I heard that the people accused the Tang family of taking bribes and bending the law. Not only that, they also committed many crimes over the years. I, Zhang Feng, as the Viscount of Xingshan, should share the Emperor's burden. Today, I, Zhang Feng, am here to investigate. You have also seen that the Tang family not only did they block the Ministry of Justice's Assistant Minister Feng Ong from investigating, they also tried to use force to intimidate us. What is this? This is a crime of treason." As he spoke, Zhang Feng unfolded the imperial edict. In an instant, the crowd of people all knelt down. Zhang Feng raised the imperial edict and said, "Today, the emperor has issued an imperial edict. He wants me, Zhang Feng, to handle this matter impartially. The people who have been bullied by the Tang family in the past can report to me. Today, I, Zhang Feng, will redress the grievances of the people." Wow. In an instant, all the people were shocked. Although everyone witnessed it with their own eyes, the Tang family was said to be related to the imperial family. Therefore, up until now when people criticized them, they only dared to say it in the crowd. They did not dare to do it openly, because they were afraid that the Tang family would seek revenge at this time. If that happened, people would really die. But now, At this moment, along with a shrill scream, the crowd was shocked. Everyone was shocked, and turned to look at the place where the scream came from. They saw that the thin-mouthed middle-aged man of the Tang family who had insulted Zhang Feng before was now raised high by the man. His neck was bent to the side unnaturally. At this moment, the crowd could still hear the sound of bones breaking, and the torso being stretched continuously. For a moment, a chill suddenly spread in the hearts of the Tang family and the people. Seeing this, Tang Hao instantly asked in a shrill voice, "Zhang Feng, the Tang family, and you have no grievances in the past. Why do you have to kill all of us?" "Kill all of us?" Zhang Feng sneered and said, "Recently, if it weren't for Qian Wanli's name, the people who killed all of us were your people, right?" Tang Hao's face changed and he hurriedly said, "Old man said that today's matter has nothing to do with the Tang family. Why are you being so overbearing?" "I'm aggressive?" Zhang Feng pointed in the direction of the academy and said, "I, Zhang Feng, have never offended anyone and I don't want to offend anyone. On Shao Mountain, which is far away from trouble, I just want to set up an academy to educate people and live a peaceful life. But what did the Tang family do today? I, Zhang Feng, have never held back anything that I have made. I have used all of it on the people. I want to ask the Tang family, isn't the purpose of today's event the phosphate fertilizer? Isn't it because you know the method to double the output and want to take it for yourself? Don't be in a hurry to deny it because there are many people on Shao Mountain today, and that little bastard of the Tang family has already told me the truth. Humph! How can the crime of rape be without a pretext? Does the Tang family need to do this? This is just the result of your torture. You can say whatever you want now. Why do you need to explain to us? Don't be hypocritical, Zhang Feng. Tell me, how do you want to take revenge? Do you want to kill everyone in the Tang family before you're willing to stop? I, Tang Hao, also told you that this matter was indeed ordered by me. How can these lowly people deserve such things? Do they deserve it? To tell you the truth, it's not just this matter. In fact, the Tang family has been plotting against you for a long time. This time, it's just a test. Do you think that only the Tang family is involved in this matter? Let me tell you, you think too simply. You can't afford to offend people who want your life. Chapter 1395. At the same time, in the imperial study, Li Shimin looked at the reports one by one, his face so gloomy that it was about to drip water. Two Bohari City's Tang dynasty informants were exposed. Lesa City, the stronghold was destroyed, all of the informants were killed. Qilan's spies were burned by a mysterious person. All of the important documents in the past few years disappeared. Many of our colleagues in Tuyuhungirmu, Domar, and other places have been annihilated, and it all happened in one night. Li Shimin heard this and angrily slammed the table, shouting, "When did this happen? Why did the news only come out today?" Seeing this, those small yellow doors were instantly scared half to death. They hurriedly said, "Your Majesty, this all happened 5 days ago, and it all happened overnight. Overnight, all the important secret memorials and other things in these places disappeared, and the remaining things were all burned down. Even the method was the same." Hearing this, Wei Zheng, Li Chengqian, and the others' heart sank. In one night, the method was the same, and all of the important and confidential documents disappeared. They had come prepared. Who could it be? Li Shimin lit a cigarette and asked with trembling hands, "Did you find out who did it?" Replying to Your Majesty, there were no clues left in the places where the families were destroyed, but there was a strange thing. There was a businessman surnamed Tang who would open his business in a high-profile manner the next day, and it was all grain at half price. Tang family again. I should have thought it was the Tang family. Li Shimin's face was instantly filled with killing intent. All of you leave. After everyone left, Li Shimin once again wandered around the imperial study. After a while he asked, "Everyone, have you ever thought about whether this Tang family is this Tang family?" Previously, if Li Yuan hadn't told Li Shimin some of the secrets of the Tang family, Li Shimin really wouldn't have guessed. But now, combined with what he was doing and what Yu Qigong had said, this Tang family seemed to be waiting for something. Not afraid of Zhang Feng, and not even afraid of the imperial edict, he had a guess. Now the truth was out. Thinking of this, Li Shimin asked, "Do Ruhui quickly investigate from the drought to the plague of locusts? How many spies were sent to Tubo and Tuyuhan? And how many of them were from the Tang family?" Hearing this, Du Ruhui hurriedly went to investigate. A moment later, Du Ruhui entered the imperial study with a list of names and said, "Your Majesty, in total, more than 3,000 people have been sent out. Most of them are from the local factions of Guanzhong and people loyal to your Majesty, but this Tang family seems to have less than 100 people." 100. This time Li Shimin finally understood. Although there were only 100 people, it seemed that these 100 people had linked the plan together. Moreover, if they were to interact with these people, it wouldn't be difficult to find out who was sent this time. As long as there was someone who wanted to do something, then, in addition, he had just received a secret report that the Tang family had been selling firearms in recent years, so there was no need to think about it. "Your Majesty, this subject has something to say." Zhang Sun Wuji stood up and said. Li Shimin waved his hand and said, "Speak." "This subject thinks that the Tang family might be the ones who destroyed the secret outposts in Tubo and Tuyuhan. This subject agrees." "This subject also agrees." Hearing this, Fang Xianling, Du Ruhui, and the others all stood up and said. Li Shimin frowned slightly. Such a big matter couldn't be a coincidence, but more like someone was planning something. Cheng Yaojin saw this and hurriedly said, "Your Majesty, I don't think this is Kong Yingda's doing. Although he is usually a little arrogant, he wouldn't be able to do something like this." But under Li Shimin's glare, he hurriedly took back his words. Li Shimin nodded. "You're right. As long as Kong Yingda isn't crazy, he wouldn't do something like this." Reporting. At this moment, a Jinwu guard rushed into the imperial study. Seeing that the officials were hesitating, Li Shimin said unhappily, "Speak." "We just received news from the Tang residence." The head of the Tang family, Tang Hao, said in public that the Tang family wasn't the only one who dealt with Prince Zhang. Moreover, the head of the Tang family admitted his guilt in public. Li Shimin was shocked when he heard this and hurriedly asked, "Jinwu guard, did you find any strange or suspicious people outside the Tang residence?" The Jinwu guard cupped his fists and said, "We haven't found anything yet. This matter was a little strange. What exactly was Tang Hao thinking? Why was he so sure? Where did his courage come from?" Li Shimin couldn't suppress his killing intent anymore. He said indifferently, "What did Zhang Feng say?" "Prince Zhang said that he was just following the law and investigating Qian Wanli's murderer and the real culprit. Moreover, that person called Gao Qin has already killed the person who insulted Prince Zhang. Prince Zhang is now seeking justice for the people and seems to want to." Li Shimin heard this and asked, "Everyone, what do you think should be done? Should we stop them?" Wei Zheng and the others were in a difficult position. It was reasonable to stop this matter and hand it over to Marble for interrogation. But if they left it alone, the academy wouldn't have a moment of peace in the future. They would fall into the Tang family's trap again. After thinking for a long time, Li Chengqian said, "Imperial Father, I think that this matter can't be delayed." Chapter 1396. In fact, when Li Shimin discussed this matter with Li Yuan, he had thought about the possibility of this. However, he never expected that such a thing would happen at this time. The matter of the Tibetan spies was something that he had planned for a long time. Furthermore, it was related to his grand plan of unifying Tibet in the future. If he really killed the people of the Tang clan, then the people of the Tang clan in Tibet would definitely reveal even more spies of the Great Tang. If that was the case, it was not good for the current situation. If the Tibetans were enraged and mobilized their troops, the Great Tang would be in an even greater predicament. But if he did not do anything about it, not only would Zhang Feng's academy be unable to maintain, but there would be endless such things in the future. Once such a precedent was set, the mastermind behind this would be more unscrupulous. Who was the mastermind behind this? Li Shimin slammed his fist on the table, scaring Wei Zheng and the others. They hurriedly got up, bowed and stood in place, not daring to move. Moreover, this matter was extremely troublesome even for them. They did not dare to make a decision lightly, let alone the emperor. Yu Qigong, tell me your thoughts. Also, what exactly happened in the military camp? Yu Qigong hurriedly said, Your Majesty, this is the confession of the Tangs and those scoundrels. As he spoke, he handed over a blood-stained memorial. Li Shimin frowned slightly and said, Did you torture them? Well, the Tangs didn't torture them. They were just a few scoundrels who made the most noise. Hearing this, Li Shimin nodded and read it 3 times without missing a word. The more he read, the more he could not suppress the anger in his heart. After a while, Li Shimin was furious and said, Guards, check all the properties of the Tangs. Anyone surnamed Tang in Chang, and should be handed over to the Ministry of Justice for strict interrogation. Everyone related to this matter should be investigated. Anyone who dares to stop me should be killed. As for the Tangs, let Fengzi deal with them himself. When Wei Zheng heard this, he hurriedly asked, Your Majesty, you can't. The Tang family is involved in a lot of things, and there must be a mastermind behind all this. It will only make things worse. Moreover, the Tang family members who are scattered outside are even more numerous. Your Majesty, please reconsider. How many can there be? Catch as many as you can. Li Shimin waved his sleeve and said, Zhen has decided. Hurry up and do it. Wei Zheng sighed bitterly. Feng Xianling hurriedly asked, Your Majesty, Kong Yingda was wrongly accused in this matter. Did Kong Yingda? Speaking of Kong Yingda, Li Shimin felt a headache coming on. If you want to kill him, then so be it. He really couldn't kill him. Let's not kill him, right? This old fellow really likes to jump around. Chapter 1397. Hiss. When everyone heard this, they could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. No one expected that Li Xiaogong would give such an order. When the commoners heard this, most of them cheered wildly for the emperor. Tang Hao, on the other hand, was dumbfounded. He looked at Li Xiaogong and shouted, That's impossible. The emperor would never say that. Li Xiaogong, how dare you falsify the imperial edict? How should you be punished? I don't accept this. I want to see the emperor. Zhang Feng, you dare to kill me today. Do you know that I know that you will kill me today? But do you know that if you kill me today, many things about the Tujue and the Tuyuhan will be exposed to the world? Can you bear the responsibility if the world is in turmoil? Zhang Feng, you said that you are doing this for the benefit of the people. You are simply putting the people of the Tang dynasty in a terrible situation. Zhang Yu, you let go of the old man. The old man has something to say. Zhang Fengli couldn't be bothered with him. He bowed respectfully to Li Xiao and said, Lord Li, is what he said true? Li Xiaogong gave him a brief summary of what the emperor had said and the information he had received today. When Zhang Feng heard this, he instantly understood what Tang Hao was using as a shield. He was simply courting death. He thought that Tang Hao would have something powerful to rely on. It turned out that he was testing the waters on the verge of death. Since the emperor could think of the same things as Zhang Feng, this matter was equivalent to Zhang Feng's scheme. How could he not have a backup plan if he could think of so many things? Did he really think that he could use the small clues that his Tang family had discovered as a means to threaten the emperor? This was simply, what an idiot. Li Xiaogong seemed to know about Zhang Feng's plan. He could not help but ask, I heard that this plan is exactly as you guessed? If that's the case, what do you plan to do? Zhang Feng rubbed his forehead. Today, I came here for my brother. As for the rest, even if it's a big matter, let's talk about it another day. Hearing this, Li Xiaogong didn't know what else to say. He cupped his fists and left in a hurry. He seemed to have gone to report on his mission. As for Zhang Feng, he never liked killing people, but if they dared to provoke him, there was nothing he could say. At this moment, Gao Can led his men and charged in. Niu Weili also led a large group of bailiffs and White Deer College's security guards and charged in. Only Zheng Tufu and Shiva were left behind, glaring at Zhang Feng like tigers watching their prey. As for the commoners, they surrounded Tang Hao and sent him to the canal by the roadside. Before Old Ma could do anything, Tang Hao was already on the verge of death. Old Ma was also injured. Old Ma was so angry that he tied Tang Hao to a willow tree by the canal and stood aside, ignoring him. At this moment, how could the furious commoners wait any longer? They all went forward, punching and kicking. As they beat, they cried and shouted. Some even went up to Tang Hao and bit him. In an instant, Tang Hao, who had fainted from the pain, woke up and screamed miserably. Zhang Feng, you son of a b***tch. If you have the ability, give Lao Tzu a quick death. Please let my wife and children go. I'll tell you everything. Ah. Just as Zhang Feng was about to agree, Zhang Feng turned his head and saw an old woman ruthlessly piercing Tang Hao's eye socket with her walking stick. In an instant, Tang Hao struggled for a moment and stopped moving. Zhang Feng was depressed. He vented his anger. He hurriedly shouted, "Don't smash his head. We still have to pay respects to Wanli later." At Tang Mansion, everything went smoothly. Moreover, the main culprit had been executed. Zhang Feng did not want to continue the killing. Anyway, the Tang family was not clean. He would leave it to Niu Weili and the Ministry of Justice to deal with. Tang Hao's head was placed in a broken gunny sack by Old Ma and handed to Zhang Feng. Blood was still dripping from the head. Zhang Feng carried the head without hesitation. Once again, he led the pale-faced Ma Zhou and the rest to Qian Wanli's mansion. Zhang Feng glanced at Ma Zhou and asked, "Do you think I went overboard?" Ma Zhou and the rest looked at the head that was still dripping with blood, and the commoners who were excitedly cheering with firecrackers. They nodded their heads. "Teacher, I think it's best to leave this matter to the authorities." Zhang Feng glanced at Hao Chujun and the rest. Seeing that they had the same thoughts as Ma Zhou, he could not help but sigh. "You haven't learned enough. This matter can indeed be left to the authorities. However, do you know that the one who died was your brother? You and Wanli are all my brothers. If I don't personally deal with this matter today, do you think the academy will be able to live peacefully in the future? It won't. Because those with ulterior motives will think that the people of the academy are easy to bully. What happened today will happen again. As for who will be next, I don't know. However, I don't want to lose any of you. This is the main reason why I took action today. Firstly, it is to seek justice for Wanli. Secondly, it is to tell the world that White Deer College is under the protection of me, Zhang Feng. Whoever dares to cause trouble will have to go through me, Zhang Feng. Chapter 1399. Qian Tong's words instantly caused an uproar. No one knew what Qian Tong was thinking. After all, at this time, his son had died because of Zhang Feng. At this time, it was not excessive to ask for his son's death. But why would Qian Tong give up? This was very unreasonable. Moreover, the purpose of everyone coming here today was for this matter. Now that Qian Tong said this, didn't it mean that their plans had fallen through? In an instant, everyone's thoughts couldn't help but become lively. Some people even began to feel angry and anxious because of this matter. Big brother, you're confused. Think about it. This is what Zhang Feng owes our Qian family. If it weren't for him, how could Wanli have died? We're all doing this for you. Big brother, if you don't want to think about yourself, then think about it. What if after 100 years, you become a traitor? Who would? Impudence. Qian Tong roared furiously. In an instant, there was no more sound in the entire Qian house. Even Madame Qian, who was crying and burning joss paper for Qian Wanli, stopped crying. What are you shouting for? You sisters quarrel as soon as you meet. Haven't you quarreled enough for several decades? Today, Wanli's classmate has come to our Qian family as a guest, so how can you elders be so ridiculous? At this moment, old Madame Qian's angry voice sounded from the backyard. In an instant, the expressions of Qian Tong and the others changed slightly. Qian Tong hurried over to the old lady and said, "Mother, what are you doing here? It's windy here. Quickly help the old lady back." The old lady was a little dizzy, as if there was a layer of mist covering her eyes, but at this time, she stubbornly hit Qian Tong's hand and asked in confusion, "Tong, or what are you doing?" What are you doing? Why are you all wearing white? Isn't this nonsense? Today is Wan Li's. Mother, Wan Li is dead. A woman who looked very similar to Qian Tong couldn't help crying. Qian Tong heard this and hurriedly scolded. Qian Xiua, if you dare to talk nonsense in front of old madam again, do you believe I won't kick you out of the house today? Wait. When the old lady saw this, she hurriedly interrupted Qian Tong's words, staring at Qian Tong with her turbid eyes as she asked, Little goose, tell me, what happened to Wan Li? The old lady's eyes were blurred, but she was not confused. At this moment she was puzzled. Why did they all come back when it wasn't the New Year or any holiday? Moreover, they were all wearing mourning clothes. What was this for? Qian Tong glared at everyone, then hurriedly said, Mother, you heard wrong. That child Wan Li is going to worship his ancestors. He said that the emperor bestowed upon him the title of Baron. So I called all of them back and prepared to worship our ancestors. Qian Tong spouted some nonsense. Finally, the old lady calmed down. However, the old lady wasn't muddle-headed. Chapter 1400. To put it bluntly, the backyard of the Qian family was just a small farmyard. There were 3 thatched cottages. Although the thatched cottages were incompatible with the splendor of the front yard, the interior was quite comfortable and elegant. The old lady sat on the bed and kept telling Zhang Feng about Qian Wanli's childhood, as well as listening to Zhang Feng's anecdotes about the academy on the mountain. Zhang Feng even personally made a dessert for the old lady. This time, the old lady was so happy that she kissed Zhang Feng's face again and again. After a while, the old lady said, Wan Li, why do I feel that you have something on your mind? Zhang Feng was shocked and hurriedly said, Grandma, I don't. You can't hide it from me. Besides, you are a little different today, but I can't tell what is different. Maybe you are thinking about the teacher and students in the front yard? The old lady sighed with some annoyance and said, That's right. How can an old lady like me let you accompany me all the time? It is more important for you to accompany the guests. In the future, come back to see me more often. By the way, this dessert, when did you learn how to make it? Zhang Feng was shocked when he heard this. He didn't think about this matter, so he had to talk nonsense. Grandma, this is what the dean made for me when I was on the mountain. I memorized it and made it for the first time today. Hee, my grandson has made a name for himself. Later, I will find a marriage for you. She is from my family. I heard that although she is only 15 years old, she is not much worse than the concubines in the palace. I also heard from your great-aunt a few days ago that there were officials who came several times and wanted your cousin to go to the palace. But I stopped them. The old lady said excitedly, How can I give such a good granddaughter-in-law to others? We are all family, of course we have to. Grandma. Zhang Feng was ashamed, and he felt even more uncomfortable in his heart. He hurriedly interrupted the old lady. Grandma, the teacher said that a man should put his studies first. The dean also said that 3 years later, I will definitely be a jinshi. That's why your grandson wants to wait until we've brought glory to our family before sitting down and waiting. When the old lady heard this, her eyes narrowed into slits. After a while, under the old lady's guidance, Zhang Feng pried open a loose stone. The old lady fumbled around and took out a palm-sized wooden box. She carefully opened it and said, Wan Li, this thing is a keepsake from when your grandfather and I first met when we were young. Rumor has it that it's an antique that has been passed down for hundreds of years. It's also a family heirloom of our Qian family. You also know what your father does, so I've never been willing to take it out. I've been thinking of giving it to you when you become successful and get married. But after hearing what you said, Grandma's memory is getting worse day by day. So Grandma wants to give it to you now. I'm just afraid that we won't be able to wait for that day. That would be troublesome. This was an antique. Although Zhang Feng didn't know much about jade, this piece of jade that was as white as sugar and as transparent as glass was still shocking. This was definitely an antique, but the guilt in his heart was even more indescribable. Grandma, are you confused again? You're in such good health. You'll definitely wait until your grandson gets married. Moreover, your grandson wants you to hold your great-grandson. Really? The old lady smiled even more kindly. She grabbed Zhang Feng's hand and leaned on Zhang Feng's cheek. She talked about Qian Wanli's childhood until the old lady fell into a deep sleep. Seeing this, Zhang Feng heaved a deep sigh of relief. He put the jade in the old lady's hand and covered her with a quilt. Then he walked out of the room quietly. He looked at the farm tools in the yard. Zhang Feng couldn't help but feel a little frustrated. Today he wanted to avenge Qian Wanli. Although it was said to be impulsive, this was what he wanted to do. He wanted to tell the world that he, Zhang Feng's people, even if the heavenly king Lao Tzu came, he couldn't touch them. He really didn't dare to bear this kind of life and death parting. Leaning against a stone roller, Zhang Feng lit a cigarette and pondered. And at this moment, suddenly, a stone was thrown from a thatched cottage toward Zhang Feng. However, it didn't hit him. Instead, it fell beside Zhang Feng's feet. But this time, it scared Zhang Feng half to death. He hurriedly took out the tri-edge bayonet and was on guard. He remembered. The entire Qian mansion, as well as the surroundings of the Qian mansion, should have been sorted out by old Ma and the others. What was this situation? Could it be? Was there an assassin hiding in this place? Zhang Feng didn't dare to talk nonsense, but he also didn't dare to make a move. He didn't practice martial arts. At this time he was already in a panic. But it was to the extent that Zhang Feng didn't have an instinctive reaction. He also wanted to see who could avoid the detection of old Ma and the others. Zhang Feng waited for a moment. He only heard some rustling sounds, but he didn't feel any danger. Then he gathered his courage and slowly stood up to look at the place where the sound came from. However, when Zhang Feng stood up, instantly he was dumbfounded by the scene that he saw. Almost at the same time, Zhang Feng and the person opposite him asked in unison, "Who are you?" Chapter 1402. In the eyes of the world, Qian Xiang was a bit of a fool. But this was all on the surface. This was because this child had been isolated from the world since he was a child, coupled with the fact that he lacked fatherly love since he was a child. And in this era, this kind of child was the most despised by the world. Because he was casual, he closed himself off. What he showed was not because he ate something, but because he was mentally immature. If such a person was properly trained, in less than 10 years, he would definitely be a blockbuster to the world. Because he longed for recognition and love. In later society, this kind of personality was called autism. What Qian had unintentionally displayed in front of Qian Tong was simply to gain Qian Tong's approval. After all, his father was a person who played with money. This was the best way to get Qian Tong's approval, but Qian Tong seemed to have labeled Qian Xiang as a fool from the beginning. So, thinking of this, Zhang Feng subconsciously asked, "Xiang, let me ask you something." Qian Xiang asked indifferently, "Is it about Guan?" No, let me ask you, if you had 3 white sheep, how much could you sell them for?" Qian Xiang looked at Zhang Feng suspiciously and asked, "If I had 300 sheep, why would I sell them?" Zhang Feng was stunned. He asked, "I'm just asking, tell me, what do you think?" Qian Xiang heard this and said, "If it was me, I would only choose the best and strongest sheep among these 300 sheep. Even if there were only 50 sheep, I would still have 300 sheep next year. As for the remaining 250 sheep, I would sell their sheepskin to the Hu merchants. I heard my mother say that a sheepskin sold for 20 copper coins. When the time comes, I will rent a butcher shop in Chang'an. I will sell 1 jin of meat for 5 copper coins. Even if there is only 30 jin of meat in a lamb, I can sell it for 150 copper coins. If there are 250 sheep, I can sell them for 37,000 copper coins. Including the bones and offal, I can sell the lamb for 40,000 copper coins, which is 40 taels of silver. If 1 piece of sheepskin is worth 20 copper coins, 250 pieces of sheepskin can be sold for 5,000 copper coins. And this is only in Chang'an. If I were to go to the Tufan Turks, the price would be even higher. When talking about this, Qianxiang was abnormally excited. It was as if at this time, in front of him was not a field of grass, but a field of silver coins. This made Zhang Feng even more curious and asked, Xiang, who did you learn this from before? Qian Chuaner looked at Zhang Feng suspiciously and said, Do we still need to learn this? This time, Zhang Feng was stumped. At this time, Zhang Feng wished that he could drag Li Gan and the other idiots here, and let them see what kind of prodigy this was. Compared to Qianxiang. What the hell was Li Gan? What the hell was Du Debing? Those were all trash. This was simply a natural-born fortune-teller, and a natural-born merchant god. After losing Qianwanli, Zhang Feng felt very guilty. This was because as a brother, he had always wanted to help the Qian family, but he could not find a way. But now, seeing Qianxiang like this, Zhang Feng could not help but have a bold idea. Xiang, don't you want to go somewhere with me first? There are many brothers at my place, and there are many, many delicious and fun things. No. Qianxiang shook his head and rejected Zhang Feng without thinking. This was somewhat unexpected to Zhang Feng. Prince Zhang. President Zhang. At this time, Qian Tong's low voice sounded at the door of the small courtyard. It interrupted Zhang Feng's thoughts. Zhang Feng shook his head helplessly and glanced at Qianxiang. The moment Qianxiang heard this voice, his eyes flashed with excitement, but a moment later, it dimmed down. Zhang Feng's heart ached. Don't you want to see your father? Qianxiang shook his head fiercely. Father said that I'm not allowed to go out of the courtyard. After saying that, Qianxiang lowered his head in grievance, not daring to look at Zhang Feng. Seeing this, Zhang Feng shook his head, stood up, and walked towards the courtyard door. As soon as he saw Zhang Feng, Qian Tong was instantly relieved. But when he saw Zhang Feng coming from that direction, he could not help but worry. President Zhang, how could you stoop to such a desolate place? This old man was rude. Uncle, what are you doing? Zhang Feng hurriedly helped Qian Tong up. As the two walked towards the front yard, they discussed the next steps. Zhang Feng said, Uncle, the matter of Wan Li is still my academy's fault. I also heard that the Ministry of Justice will send some of the Tang family's wealth to you soon. After the Ministry of Justice checks the properties of the four families, someone will send them to you. But, while speaking, the two paused. Zhang Feng said, The academy is, after all, just the academy. I don't want to take care of other things right now. I'll leave them to Lao Li and the others. When the time comes, I'll send someone to personally talk about the future of the white paper business. I've decided before Wan Li's business will still be handled by your Qian family. President Zhang. Qian Tong knelt down in front of Zhang Feng and sighed. President Zhang, my Qian family is unable to repay the kindness you have shown to my Qian family. Now that Wan Li's revenge has been avenged and we've given you enough, if you continue to give this old man more, I'm afraid you'll remember it. Zhang Feng helped Qian Tong up from the ground. Qian Tong was right. I previously believed that Wan Li would have a brilliant future in the field of merchants, but after seeing Qianxiang, I'm even more certain that within 10 years, Qianxiang, will be unmatched in the art of merchants in my Great Tang. No, even in the borders of my Great Tang. How could Qian Tong have known that Zhang Feng would give Qianxiang, a child he had almost forgotten, such a high evaluation? Now that he saw Zhang Feng again and saw how sincere he was, Qian Tong felt even more complicated. Looking into Zhang Feng's eyes, Qian Tong asked seriously, President Zhang, is what you said true? Zhang Feng pointed to the backyard and said, Why don't Uncle Qian call Qianxiang over? Let's go. Since Qian Wanli went to the academy, Qian Tong had basically never stopped inquiring about Zhang Feng. From Qian Wanli's mouth, Qian Tong learned that even Li Gan and Du Debing, the smartest people in the academy, had never received such a high evaluation from Zhang Feng. Before this, Qian Tong had wondered what kind of person Zhang Feng considered a genius. So today, when he learned that Zhang Feng actually had such a high evaluation of his stupid son, how could he believe it? The two hurried back to the small courtyard. Qian Xiang naturally noticed Qian Tong's arrival and hurriedly hid behind the sheep house, secretly watching the two. Seeing this, Qian Tong immediately shouted angrily, "Come out, come out!" Zhang Feng hurriedly stopped him. "Uncle, don't do this, you'll scare him." Qian Tong hurriedly said, "Dean, how could my son receive such treatment from you?" Zhang Feng ignored him and instead waved to Qian Xiang, Xiang, come to big brother's side?" Qian Xiang, was still a little frightened and didn't dare to move. Seeing Qian Tong about to get angry again, Zhang Feng quickly squatted down and said, "Xiang, tell your father about the 300 sheep your big brother just told you about. Wait for big brother to take you to eat something delicious." Something delicious? Hearing this, Qian Xiang's eyes lit up, but after glancing at Qian Tong he shrank back. Qian Tong said with some resentment, "The dean told you to speak, so just speak. Father won't scold you." Seeing this, Qian Xiang slowly let down her guard. She fearfully told Zhang Feng about what she had just said, as well as the plan that she hadn't finished talking about. This time, Qian Tong was dumbfounded. He seriously doubted that the timid boy standing next to him at this time was still his stupid son. After a long time, Zhang Feng asked, "Uncle, now you know Xiang's ability, right?" But after all, no buts. You should know that in addition to merchant skills and teaching, I, Zhang Feng, also know some medical skills. What's more, Divine Doctor Sun is also on my mountain. If you don't believe me, do you not believe in Divine Doctor Sun? Chapter 1405. Reporting. Your Majesty, President Zhang and the others have safely returned to the academy. In the imperial study, Xiao Gizi's report instantly caused the stifling atmosphere in the imperial study to slowly recover some of its warmth. Li Shimon's cracked lips opened slightly. "Did you notice anything unusual along the way?" "Nothing at the moment. The branches of the big families in Chang'an and near Chang'an are under constant surveillance by the imperial guards. There is nothing unusual with these people at the moment. Leave." Li Shimon waved his hand. Xiao Gizi hurriedly left. After Xiao Gizi left, Li Shimon looked around and asked Cheng Yaojin, Wei Zheng, and the others, "What time is it now?" "Your Majesty, it is now Sushur." Li Shimon nodded and looked at Zhang Sun Wuji. "The Ministry of Justice, haven't you gotten anything out of the interrogation?" Zhang Sun Wuji's face tightened. "There is no news yet. Lord Li is personally in charge of the Ministry of Justice. I believe there should be no problems." Li Shimon heard and sighed. Such a big thing happened to the four families, but you didn't know anything beforehand. You should be punished. Hearing this, Wei Zheng, Yu Qigong, and the others hurriedly got up and knelt. "We are guilty." Li Shimon continued. "Qian Wanli's matter is small, and this was an accident. But have you ever thought that the one who died today was not Qian Wanli, but us, or your children? What would you think?" Yu Qigong, Niu Jinda, and Cheng Yaojin were shocked and hurriedly said, "Your Majesty, it is our fault, we—" "Enough." Li Shimon waved his hand and said, "Let the crown prince in." Outside the imperial study, Li Chengqian and the others were all kneeling neatly. Hearing this, Li Chengqian's face changed, but he hurriedly bowed and entered the imperial study. Once inside, Li Shimon glanced at Li Chengqian and said, "I remember that the tea house in the East City is your property, right? Also, you have a group of spies in Chang'an City who are responsible for collecting information and spreading rumors. What do you think of this matter?" Li Chengqian's face changed instantly and he hurriedly said, "Father, I was careless. But I've been busy with the phosphate fertilizer on the mountain during this period of time, and forgot about it. Please punish me, Father." "Wait, go to the Ministry of Justice to receive your punishment." Li Shimon waved his hand. "What do you think of this matter? Did your people gather any useful information today?" "Yes, but they are all kneeling outside Taiji Palace." "Announce it." As his voice fell, little Gizi hurriedly announced the decree. A moment later, more than 10 people of different ages and sizes appeared at the door of the imperial study, trembling. Looking at the people kneeling in the imperial study, they couldn't help but panic. "Greetings, Your Majesty." More than 10 people knelt down as soon as they entered the door. They were the sons of the Duke and had the Academy's token to enter and exit the city. As long as they had the token, they would turn a blind eye and let them out of the city as long as there were no major incidents. The moment they hit it off and hurriedly ran away, a team of Jinwu guards in golden armor rushed out of the palace. Then they scattered and rushed to the mansions of the Duke. Teams of Imperial Guards shuttling between Chang'an City and the Imperial City were still like hawks shuttling back and forth in Chang'an City. This kind of thing didn't stop until it was almost midnight. But just as the clock was about to ring, the clock was ticking. At the Tunghua Gate of Chang'an, a rider holding a torch galloped over. When the guard on the city gate was about to speak, the rider on the horse shouted, "Open the gate quickly. Good news, good news." On the mountain, in Zhang Feng's villa, Zhang Yuyao and Jingshu stopped crying when Zhang Feng came back, and then went to the room on the second floor. In the living room on the first floor. At this time, a group of big shots on the mountain gathered together. Although the old village chief and old he had already explained the matter clearly, Scholar Lai and the others still asked Zhang Feng to explain the matter again. Everyone furrowed their brows and slowly walked away. But when they reached the door, Scholar Lai noticed Qian Xiang huddled in the corner of the door and asked, "Fengzi, this is..." His name is Qian Xiang, Qian Wanli's half-brother. "Xiang, come and greet your teacher." Zhang Feng hurriedly introduced. However, everyone was also stunned by this name. It took them a long time to react, but when they saw Qian Xiang's timid expression, they thought that he was frightened today. Moreover, they were too lazy to ask about the person Zhang Feng brought back. After all, this mountain belonged to Zhang Feng. How could they ask about it? They were too lazy to ask. After such a big thing happened today, they had been tense and wanted to rest early. After all, the results would only be out tomorrow. After the few of them left, Zhang Feng immediately called Old Ma in and asked seriously, "Old Ma, you saw what happened today. I want to get a special force. Go back and pick a few smart people for me." Old Ma was stunned and asked, "What soldiers are you talking about? You want to raise a private army?" No, it's a special force. It's similar to the security guards on the mountain, but they're just there to learn the new military tactics and fighting methods that I came up with. But the prerequisite is that they have to be young." His eyes couldn't help but light up as he said, "If these fellows were in the army, they would definitely be fierce generals. Could it be that you want to?" Zhang Feng nodded. Old Ma's expression changed instantly. He asked suspiciously, "Dean, you really don't know Tai Nyo's identity?" Zhang Feng was stunned and asked, "What other identities do they have?" When Old Ma saw Zhang Feng's expression, he instantly knew that Zhang Feng still didn't know the real identity of Cheng Tiniu and the others. This was easy to handle. If Zhang Feng really knew their identity, then Zhang Feng's arrangement would be problematic. After all, these fellows' fathers, except for Gao Can, were all high dukes. Letting them do this at this time? If the dean hadn't discussed this with the high dukes in advance, then it would be strange. In fact, in the Chang'an military camp, Zhang Feng had already known about the training method that he had come up with. Not to mention training, just hearing about it made his scalp tingle. Carrying dozens of kilograms of stones on their backs every day. They couldn't even sleep well. This was simply the devil's training method. In the Chang'an military camp, there were at least 50,000 soldiers stationed there. Those who could stay in the Chang'an military camp were basically the elites of the elites. However, there were not even 5,000 people who could pass the training method so far. From this, one could see how terrifying it was. But once they got through this level, it was really like what Zhang Feng had said. It was not a problem for them to be able to fight 10 people at once. Besides, they were not given any tools or food, not even a fire starter, and were asked to fight with the beasts in the Qinling Mountains for 10 days. The person who could come up with such a training manual was either crazy or a god. At first, old Ma Huanzi had lamented that this thing had been created by that perverted general. However, when he found out that this thing had been created by Zhang Feng, he was completely dumbfounded. With Zhang Feng's weak body, how could he come up with such a thing? Now when Zhang Feng said this, he suddenly understood that this thing was really made by the dean. Was it just for this moment? Old Ma was dizzy listening to this. His mind was still thinking about this matter. After talking for a long time, Zhang Feng found that Old Ma was in a daze. He couldn't help but ask, Old Ma? Old Ma? Hey Old Ma, do you want a wife or not? After hearing the word wife, Old Ma finally reacted. Zhang Feng rubbed his head and said, You go down the mountain tomorrow morning. Call Jia Daran up. Those guys are naughty. The two of you will be responsible for their training from now on. Also, find those guys for me tomorrow morning. Seeing that Zhang Feng really intended to train Qing Chimo and the other young dukes, and that he would train them in the future, Old Ma was so scared that his legs went soft.